Friday. TGI Friday, everybody. TGI Frankly. On this final Friday of March 2025, it's the 28th to be exact. And man, oh man, I'm just happy that we are here again and we've had a nice, long, and involved week of work. Next week is going to be awesome for so many reasons. Not only is it a new month beginning, it's just, I love April, not just because it's my birthday month, it's just very fresh. There's like assurances of spring. I know every once in a while there's the rogue 40-degree day, and in 1996 we had a nice squall of snow. But it is the assurances of spring is here now, and we also have wonderful new opportunities for the show that is opening up for us in April. And yeah, listen, there's great things. I can't wait to announce some of them. And I got a friend with me tonight. It's Jay Gulinello. How the hell you doing, Jay?
Good. How are you?
You feeling well?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a good night tonight. We have some things to talk about. We're going to be talking about a little bit about RFK.
Yeah.
There's some new stuff going on there. I think that when you talk about just watching the news and tracking positive movement, there's definitely a lot to be said about that, even though a little controversy has popped up around the SNAP program and sugary drinks. We'll get to that's ridiculous.
I mean, after only 60, how long is 60 days or so he's been confirmed? I mean, it's just, I don't even know how many days, but what I'm saying is it's way too early for the controversy. So we got 4 years. So we'll pace yourself.
Talk about that. Where we have, I mean, it's going to be a little bit of a blend of science and open lines. And in the second half, we got some fun stuff. And I also want to, I got to just see what you have as far as follow-up thoughts on JFK. Last time we got together, we had a really awesome... people don't realize how much knowledge you have on the subject, which is why when we did that the little bit of a JFK Files digest last Friday, people were pleasantly surprised about all the information that we were tossing around. Again, after we ended that show, there was another 14,000 or so documents that were released, but very little fanfare compared to the first 40,000 or so. Right. So, as a week has passed in the second half tonight, just want to get some, I want to just get some roundup thoughts from you or whatever. So,
yeah, I mean, I know everyone's looking for that smoking gun thing, the document, the one thing, but that probably doesn't exist. So you and I will talk about that a little bit more, but, this has been something that I was, this is what I do in my free time. This was my original obsession in high school. So it goes back a long ways. And I think, if nothing else, I'm just living now to prove my history teacher incorrect.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, yeah. And there's hey, listen, there's plenty of opportunity to prove our teachers incorrect now. Yeah. Just everything.
Yeah.
I feel bad.
I know. Well, we have the benefit of hindsight in all fairness, but she wasn't very open-minded. Sorry, Miss Nisby.
Is she listening?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I'll tell you, man.
I have no idea.
I wonder how many of my teachers. I have a good amount of teachers that are still alive. I know.
Yeah.
Because they were fairly young. Mm-hmm. But I know there's a few that are gone.
Yeah, it depends on where you were, like on the spectrum. I definitely had older teachers. I was in a weird place when I was in high school, right? I had some of those teachers now I know are gone. And then you have those few times where there's a few teachers where I think, wow, I'm older than they were when they were my teacher, and I used to think they were old.
I know. Well, I mean,
damn it.
That's what scares me about watching home videos now across all generations of my family.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my parents when they are younger than I am now, and I'm in their arms, and it's just everything is very strange.
Yeah, it's surreal.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's going to be really interesting the next couple of weeks because, I love having you in whenever I can, but I definitely want to have you in on some of the upcoming Thursdays because not only are we going to be syndicated on Badlands, but we have some really great guests that I think that you would have a fun time talking to as well. We got a regenerative farmer that's coming in.
Yeah.
Coming on. He's not in New York, but he's
bringing in his farm. He's going to do the whole thing right here.
Everything. Well, apparently, I think he might actually ship nationwide. I don't know.
Yeah, this is all very cool stuff, man. I'm so happy for the show, and I'm always happy to come support anytime. Like I said, I go wherever the people want me, and so as long as it's not an imposition on the show to be here, I will always be here.
I
to
go
help you
wherever
guys.
the seed oils are not.
Yes, well, that too.
Okay.
It goes without saying.
Well, that's it. Well, tonight we should have a great mutual friend that's stopping by for a little bit. That is Molly Rucker.
No.
Molly Rucker of Keto Brains is calling in for a couple minutes. Not only is she going to announce a winner of our final monthly sponsor giveaway. We did 2 of those this month. We do it quarterly, and we had so much stuff to give away that we said, let's do 2. But I know that Molly knows a little bit about what we're going to be talking about in a second. And it's an article by way of, it was published on New York Post by way of the Associated Press.
Okay.
We'll get to that in just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, quite frankly, superchat.com, the Rumble Rants, the Gold Pills, that's how you can get in touch with us if you're not going to call in. The lines will be open, especially in the second half. It's Friday night, so come as you are and come with whatever the hell you want to bring, and just don't come empty-handed. That's very rude.
So rude.
Very rude. You got to at least show up with some cookies, with a bottle of wine. Just show up with something, a thought, nutshell it, and there you have it. Other than that, is there anything else in my... No.
You just want to do it?
No, that's it. Yeah, we're doing good.
Let's just do it.
We're doing good. All right, so here we go. A couple of things right off the bat. This first story, I'm excited. I'm excited about this. Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ sequel to start shooting this summer at Rome.
I heard you talking about this.
Yeah.
I feel like you maybe have been talking about this for several years now.
Yes.
Yeah?
I've been waiting for this for a long time. I mean, a lot of people have.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like there's been a few false starts. Like when you mentioned this the other night, I was like, wait, just starting the filming?
This is actually a positive development because the last time I heard them any kind of an update on this, I think Mel himself said that they were probably going to start in 2026.
Whoa.
So I was like, shit, we got to wait until 26 for them to even start filming. But now it seems like they're getting some stuff done in Rome this summer.
Is Jim Caviezel? Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the main things he says. He's one of the biggest challenges, aside from being able to convey what he wants to show in this, because so much of it is happening in spiritual realms.
Right.
Like I can't wait for this because he's talking about, depicting almost like the beginning, like the fall of angels kind of shit, where the competition for the souls of man to capture and to dominate the souls of man come from, and then also Jesus's 3 days kicking ass in between.
And now you have the technology to pull something, like to pull that out of your mind and to actually put it onto the screen. So that's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, he said the thing here is that you have all of these people. You're in another realm. You're in another place. You need to go to hell for this one. But of course, he's addressing that you have actors that were in this film 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And
20 years.
But he thinks he knows how to get de-aging has gotten pretty good.
Yeah.
Not for Martin Scorsese, of course. When he did you see The Irishman?
No, I did not. With
Robert De Niro and Pesci, and they all got back together for it and whatever. The worst. I remember when the Irishman came out, we watched it and we enjoyed it. It was long. It was interesting. We all watched it as a family. I remember that. But then it wasn't until about maybe a couple of months after it came out and people were starting to get clips of the movie and do their own de-aging. And there are YouTubers that did de-aging of Robert De Niro and other characters for free, just from whatever software they had in their bedroom. They did better than this $100 million budget movie.
Wow.
So I know it could be done
by
somebody. But
maybe the art of subtlety is the key there, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're using a filter.
Mel will get it done.
Yeah, he'll get it done.
All right, here's something else for you. This is from NBCS. Now, I don't know if you know about this, Jay. Baseball fans in Pennsylvania, they are in mourning because a cherished tradition, at least for now, at least for the moment, is coming to an end. Do you know what the poop game is?
The poop game?
Yeah, do you know what the poop game is?
I could guess, but no, I don't.
Okay. It's very well known. NBC Sports Philadelphia. Whenever you have the Phillies playing the Pittsburgh Pirates, this is how the score bug for NBC plays on the screen, on the television, when the Pirates are playing the Phillies and there's no score. Take a look at that. Okay, so you have... So this is...
I get it now.
Yeah. So yeah, the P for the Phillies, 0-0, and then the P for the Pirates.
That's good.
And this is the poop game. And apparently NBC Sports, this is from awfulannouncing.com. NBC Sports Philadelphia unveiled a new score bug for Philadelphia Phillies broadcast Sunday, and yes, there were complaints. There are always complaints anytime a network tweaks its score bug. Just look at the grief Fox Sports earned for introducing a new score bug during the Super Bowl, but NBC Philadelphia's new score bug bothered people because it brings an end to one of the oddest series in sports, the Poop series between the Phillies and
so that's the only time that ever occurs.
Yeah, well, the P's. They're P's.
So there's no other teams. I just got never even considered this.
And it's not only that, but they're also cross-state rivals.
Yeah, okay.
You know, it's not like the Phillies. But
maybe there aren't any other ones. That's so interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
And those are the kind of little things that you can't buy that kind of publicity, notoriety, so they got rid of it? Is that what happened?
This is the new score bug.
Oh no, you can't do that.
Yeah. So that's Baltimore. So for this one is from a spring training game between the Orioles and the Phillies.
Okay.
Baltimore, BAL 0, PHI 0. So they're separating the score. They're bringing in larger acronyms for the cities.
Okay.
And poop is gone now. They have to bring it back.
I mean, yeah. Why wouldn't you?
This is one of those things that I bet you any money it comes back.
Frank, I never even knew that existed.
It's juvenile as hell, but
I love stuff like that. And I think it's like, and if you're Major League Baseball, you should probably embrace those kinds of things because you would have never planned it, obviously. It just happens. And then when people latch onto something like that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, here's this Philly sports sufferer on Twitter says, "This implies the destruction of the poop game. So long, sweet prince."
It's really funny. I don't know why it's so funny to me. It's just funny.
Yeah, that's why I love that kind of stuff.
The poop game.
Yeah, just these are the things you need to know if you go to bar trivia one night.
That's exactly what that would be for.
That question is what everything would be on the line for.
Yeah, you could win millions.
Well, at least 500.
Or at least chicken wings.
A buyback. Some beer.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, so here is what we got to throw up into the air, and then we're going to bring on Molly. Shit. I forgot to play the intro. Now we don't have time for it. It doesn't matter. It's Friday.
That's where I thought we were going before we went into that stuff.
I know.
I was orchestrating the show in my mind, Frank.
I should have just...
You should have read my mind. That's what you should have done.
I just started riffing and then...
I got really excited.
Went to hell.
Should we just sing the theme song?
Yeah, no. Here's from New York Post.
Okay.
Scientists find clue. After all these years, scientists finally find a clue to slowing Alzheimer's symptoms down. But guess what got in the way? Research has been caught up in Trump's funding delays.
I should have known. It's always Trump's fault.
It was Trump. All these years that we've been trying to figure out what the hell is the key to cancer, to Alzheimer's, to Parkinson's, all that stuff. We finally had a clue, and then Trump delayed it for a couple of months.
So in other words, ironically enough, Joe Biden could have solved Alzheimer's.
He could have.
Okay, just want to make sure that we understand that. Okay.
So listen to how this is written. Again, New York Post by way of the Associated Press. Associated Press is absolutely crazy. An experimental treatment appears to delay Alzheimer's symptoms in some people genetically destined to get the disease in their 40s and 50s.
So I have a huge issue with that just right out of the gate, but continue.
That's what I'm talking about right there, 40s and 50s. According to new findings from ongoing research now caught up in Trump administration funding delays.
Good Lord.
The early results, a scientific first, were published Wednesday, even as study participants worried that politics could cut their access to possible lifeline. First of all, if some lab was on the brink of breaking this thing wide open, money would flow in from everywhere, from pharmaceutical companies, from universities with massive endowments, as it should be, period. The way it should be whenever you have something that you want to fund, that's the way it should be. But here we are, and again, it's so weak. The claim is so weak. Let's just keep going a little bit here. Now 50 years old, this guy Heinrichs has been treated in that study for more than a decade and remains symptom-free despite inheriting an Alzheimer-causing gene.
Wait, can you scroll? Is this the guy, the picture?
This is the guy.
Okay.
All right. Okay? He's got, I guess that's his son on the couch over there. Okay. And he's symptom-free, although inheriting an Alzheimer-causing gene that killed his father and brother around the same age.
Do they identify the gene, by the way, in that?
Let's see.
I'm just curious.
If funding is blocked, how much time do we have? Asked his wife. It's all very, very dramatic. Two drugs sold in the U.S. can modestly slow the worsening early stage Alzheimer's by clearing the brain of one of its hallmarks, sticky gunk called amyloid.
Beta. Yeah,
amyloid.
I knew it. This model is so broken, and this is why we haven't had an FDA approved drug since like 2004, because they're still working on this amyloid beta theory, and it's just not correct.
Sticky gunk.
Yeah.
The new findings center on a subset of 22 participants who receive amyloid-removing drugs, the longest on average 8 years. Now, as far as the gene,
It's okay if it's not there. I can look it up after. I was just curious if they identified it.
Well, and this is what comes around. This is why I wanted to bring on Molly, and I wanted us all to talk, because this opens it up. Alzheimer's is one of those things where, I mean, it is a soul dementia. Alzheimer's, it's a soul crusher. Anytime a family member or someone you love, someone you know is sick with anything, and it's serious, and it might be the end for them, just outside of that category of disease, it's terrible. But there's a special kind of burden to seeing somebody losing their cognition, everything.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's of great importance for people for things like this to be figured out. But like everything else that we deal with, whether it's talking about how much salt can somebody consume, or is red meat going to cause cancer for everybody, or this, that, and the other thing, it's always about pushing a drug or continuing to find a way to pump billions into new studies that push and kick the can another 10 to 25 years down the road, but nobody seems to be getting healthier.
No. And that's the whole thing, Frank. If you look at someone like Bruce Ames, who was a researcher who identified something called the triage theory, which you have to just look at this from a 30,000 foot point of view. Do we think that since organisms are set up for survival, all organisms, Bruce Ames would say, if the organism is stripped of nutrients or things that it needs to run vital processes, it's going to prioritize the vital process and then allow other things to that may not kill the organism, but allow the things to kind of work in the background. It will divert resources towards only the essentials. It makes perfect sense. We see that in animals. We see that in every living species. What's fascinating to me is they're trying to convince you, even at the outset, that there is some kind of a specific gene that causes Alzheimer's. It's just not true. They can find genes that may be associated with a higher prevalence of X, Y, or Z disease, but all that means is that gene has been likely put into an unfortunate modern environment. And we can see that. The reason I ask is because I bet they're looking at something called ApoE4. I don't know. I haven't read the study, but I can certainly check it out. And they tend to say, oh, that leads to Alzheimer's. It's not true. Otherwise, it would lead to it in everybody. It could predispose somebody, and they may be uniquely susceptible to the modern environment, whether that's EMF, whether that's nutritional environment, whether that is lack of sunlight, whatever it is. So I just think I reject the premise that there is an inevitability to these diseases. We've just normalized disease because, as you said, we're sitting around waiting for a, quote, cure to come from a pharmaceutical company instead of realizing that we're putting the body into an unnatural position and the body is just responding appropriately to that unnatural position.
It's, the hamster wheel. It's the same hamster wheel that we see really saying it presents itself all over the place.
Yeah.
And in this particular thing, this is why I wanted to bring our friend Molly on tonight. And Molly just joined us, Molly Rucker of KetoBrains.com. Molly, how you feeling?
Doing good.
Oh, wait, hold on a second.
Happy Friday, guys.
Yeah, it's a happy Friday to you. Now, Jay, I actually met Molly through Jay.
That's right.
Because I met Keto Brains through Jay as well. So it's good. It's so good to have you on tonight.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on.
Molly, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I love it. I love these connections that come about in these very random ways in this community. And I couldn't be happier for this one. So thank you both.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and I'm grateful for the whole darn thing. But I'll tell you, for as random as things are, there's other things that just make a lot of sense. And of course, you know, you coming from a line of work that deals directly with nutrients that really help the brain, and here we have this story coming out of Associated Press that is it's published to push one particular line of thinking here, and that is, oh my gosh, the wheels the wheels of government have ground to a halt, and the only way we were ever going, which is of course the only way we're going to cure disease or learn more about the body or nourish ourselves correctly, and of course here's Alzheimer's. And this is something I've talked to Jay about before, Molly, and he was the first one that I heard refer to this as type 3 diabetes. And lo and behold, just from being very well acquainted with your brand, published on your blog, there it is again. It is type 3 diabetes. This was from earlier on in the month. Is dementia type 3 diabetes? And I would love to hear you guys talk a little bit about this. Why, Jay or Molly, whoever wants to take it first, what is this about? How does this have a particular tie into the talk about diabetes, which is usually about sugar and insulin and all that stuff? Maybe Jay, you started off, and then Molly, you jump in whenever you want.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially what they identified early on was some degree of glucose hypometabolism. So the brain does run on some degree of glucose, although that's now starting to be, it's starting to be challenged in the medical literature in terms of how much glucose the brain actually requires, because ketones, often referred to as an alternative fuel source, really are just an additional fuel source to the brain. So we really don't know what the brain prefers, quote unquote. I don't even like that term because it kind of denotes that like the brain is a person that has a preference. It's really just biochemistry. But as your blood sugar levels tend to increase over time and the cells become less responsive to the signals of insulin, which control glucose in the blood, the brain is shut off, starved from that energy source, glucose. And if your body hasn't learned how to use ketones, which are a byproduct of mobilizing fat for fuel, then your brain essentially is starved for nutrients, and the neural networks start to collapse and everything falls apart. And incidentally, that's also where beta amyloid comes into play. And there's plenty of evidence that shows ketone bodies can actually help clear amyloid beta. So again, if you're putting the brain in an unnatural state where it's relying on sugar constantly, it makes sense then that at the end of the day, you're going to have some kind of an issue. And since we know that type 3 diabetes or Alzheimer's is some level of glucose hypometabolism, that's where we end up. And that's where I think the Keto Brains product is so fantastic, because a lot of our sugar ends up going in our coffee in the morning and starting off the day that way. And you really don't need that at all when you're using Keto Brains. But I'll turn it over to Molly.
There's so much to that story. Just to start, when I first took a look at it, of course, there's hundreds of different articles, and all they're doing is saying the exact same thing as the first. And just really quick, the first thing that drove me nuts on that is years ago, 20 plus years ago, I read about the nun study, and you guys may have already covered it, so apologies.
I don't think so.
But when it comes to the beta amyloid plaques, part of the problem is, so they took these nuns, and there's like 900 and something of them, and they track them over a lifetime, and all of these nuns give their brains over to research at the end of their life, so the researchers can try to correlate the amount of the beta amyloid plaques with their cognitive function at the time of death. And as far as I understand, after years of looking at all of this, like, you can have a ton of beta amyloid and die at 104 with perfect cognitive function, or you can have low beta amyloid or next to none and die in your 60s of complications from Alzheimer's. So while the beta amyloid plaque hypothesis, there's some connection there, like the fact that they're even trying to make a case for being upset that research money is potentially going away for something that has largely been debunked as the primary cause is insane to begin with. On the the brain metabolism side, I'm going to mess up the numbers, but when it comes to the glucose versus ketones, your brain requires less oxygen when running on ketones versus the glucose to begin with. So we already have a case to be made for a higher quality fuel substrate when you are running on ketones, or as Jay alluded to, if you are a body that can switch between substrates and you can run on glucose or ketone bodies, you have a brain that is better at, functioning in a hybrid mode.
Yeah.
And, to his point on Keto Brains, the C8-MCT, which is the base of the product, that C8-MCT is one of the triglycerides from coconut oil, the caprylic acid, that does the best job of stimulating the liver's production of ketone bodies, helping those who are in ketosis or not in ketosis have a bump of ketones to give the brain an opportunity to actually have that secondary fuel substrate. And separate from that, you, of course, have the alpha-glycerylphosphocholine, which is one of the best forms of choline for crossing the blood-brain barrier to increase production of the neuromodulator, which is the neuromodulator of focus in mammals. So acetylcholine, irrespective of a disease state, whether you have dementia, Alzheimer's, you're just brain fog, whatever, you cannot have focus as a mammal without adequate acetylcholine. And there's a whole discussion around that, because you could say, well, what if I just eat eggs? Eggs have choline, and then my body's going to know to take the choline from the eggs, and we're going to make more acetylcholine. Yes, and do you know what suite of genetic mutations you have in the MTHFR realm or the PEMT realm or COMT? Because for instance, myself and a large, portion of the population, genetically, I am not as good at taking choline and making acetylcholine due to a number of mutations, all of which are very easy to dial in and fix once you know you have them. Mm-hmm. So there are so many people who think, I get this a lot, and I got this a lot all of my years working in this industry. People come to you and they say, I don't know what's wrong. I'm doing everything right, but I feel horrible. Yeah. So I kind of try to be gracious and say, well, if you were doing everything right, perhaps you wouldn't feel horrible. So looking at that, you have people who think they're feeding themselves correctly. They're doing everything right? Whether it's they think being vegan is the right way or being this is the right way. And they haven't taken a deep enough dive into their own personal physiology or genetics and really asked themselves what would work. And I think that's why we find so many people respond so strongly and immediately to the ingredients in Keto Brains and to the amounts of the ingredients in Keto Brains, because I think so many people's brains have been starved, not only of ketones, but of the essential fats and lipids for a brain that functions in optimal fashion. And yeah, that's where Keto Brains came from my morning stack.
Well, see, now Jay, I understand why you said, because I remember one of the first questions I had for Jay, Molly, back in like September or October of 2023 when I first tried it. I said, well, is this going to break my fast? He said, technically, but. And then,
yes.
and he said, like, everything you're talking about there, where you say whether you're in ketosis or not, what it does to. So it's one of those things that I feel like I'm cheating a little bit when I have it in the middle of a fast, and I just don't care as much. But to get into something a little bit more specific on this stuff here, what you were just saying about the beta amyloids and people living with high levels of it, but being perfectly functional on a cognitive level, and those who are low in it that might have suffered a lot of degeneration in their brain and whatnot. It reminds me of all of these false correlation studies about cholesterol.
Exactly where I was going to go.
Okay, so talk a little bit about that, because of course, when we're talking cholesterol, we're talking about fats, we're talking about the brain. I mean, there's MCT oil and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Well, I mean, Molly did a great job of breaking that down. The thing is, it is just associational, and that's really the problem, right? That we see. There was a fantastic set of data coming from the Get With the Guidelines American Heart Association, where they were looking at the specifically LDL levels of people hospitalized that had myocardial infarctions, heart attacks, and they put this sort of spread of data out, and what it showed was that there was no rhyme or reason to it. In other words, people that had LDL levels of 250, which would give most cardiologists a heart attack, these people were having heart attacks, but they were having just as many, if not or less heart attacks than people who had LDL levels of 60 or 50. And in fact, the people that had the most heart attacks in this group had an LDL level of 90, which is well below what they say is the quote unquote acceptable normal range. So what that tells you is that there's really no correlation. And what Molly was saying is we're looking in the wrong place, which is why there has been no FDA approved drug for Alzheimer's, because they're all targeting this beta amyloid model. And the truth is that this is probably...
There's no money in lowering carbohydrates.
Exactly.
There's no drug at the end of a trial funded to see what would happen if people reduced carbohydrates and got metabolically healthy. So it's like with Dave Feldman and the research he's doing on lean mass hyperresponders.
Mm-hmm.
All of the studies that he and Nick are doing, they have to be self-funded because they're not looking for a drug. They're looking for information that will actually help people live better.
You see, and that's the basis of this. That's the basis of this ridiculously petty piece from the Associated Press. Is that, oh man, we had, after all these years of studying Alzheimer's, we have this clue. We had this clue, and then the government funding stopped for a little while, and now what? The clue's gone? I don't understand. It's like if there was really an answer to be had there, people would open up their wallets and give to a GoFundMe. Forget about these gigantic universities with their endowments and pharmaceutical companies who actually may give a rip about actually curing diseases or anything else like that. But to Molly's point.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think Molly, you were also saying, isn't the only, I think caprylic acid, C8 in the MCT chain, I think that's the only fatty acid that can also, or the only MCT that can actually cross the blood-brain barrier as well, if I'm correct on that. And
I'm trying to remember, I know I have the name not wrong. It's not Dale Bresnan, but there was the woman researcher like 20 years ago when first coconut oil was okay. And then MCT oil came out and we were selling that where I worked. And I forget the gal's name, but she was a researcher whose husband had
Mary
Alzheimer's.
Newport.
Yes, Mary Newport. So her,
you guys are nerds.
That's
why we get along so well.
I have her baseball card.
Anyone. I have no one in my life who wants to hear any of this shit.
We want to hear it.
I know it's amazing. But so she had, and I'm gonna gum up the story. Apologies. And Jay, you can help me out where I mess up, but she had found out that the MCT oil had brought back some cognitive function in her husband. And at some point she was able to gain access to like early research exogenous ketones, like way before HVMN originally had ketone esters and way before Dom D'Agostino was talking about them. Right. And I was immediately fascinated by that before I even understood what the state of ketosis was. This was before I went keto. And that's just like a simple food. I put it in my dog's food. It's good for dogs. It's good for dogs with cancer. It's insane to me that some of the most nourishing foods are still demonized in any circles because those of us that live in this little bubble, we think the rest of the world is paying attention, but unfortunately it seems like a very small layer of the population are in this realm.
Yeah.
And this whole, dis-ease, temporary state of dis-ease. You don't cure that. You work backwards to the place where the state of dis-ease began, and you work on making the host, which is you. I am the host, and I can make myself as the host a bad environment for disease to live.
Oh, she's talking terrain theory now. Look out.
Boy. I love it.
Sorry.
No, I mean, and it's, it's funny. You mentioned Dom D'Agostino. He was the driving force in me. I went to a conference in 2017. I'll make a really long story short. I saw him speak, and you know this, Molly. He's so brilliant that,
I love him.
That literally everything he said went over my head. And I remember thinking, I want to know what the hell he's talking about. And that's when I started, and I went to school. I went back to school 11 days later. Because
Mine was similar, except that like I was busy building out a supplement department in Southern California, and a buddy was like, "You got to listen to this podcast. You got to listen to this podcast." And it was Dom's first appearance on Joe Rogan.
oh wow.
And I finally listened to it, and it was a holy shit moment of this evolutionarily makes the most sense. And I stopped eating carbohydrates that day. Like I ate sour cream for 3 days, and ketosis hit so fast and so hard because I was trail running that I pulled my car over to the side of the road because I thought something was wrong with my car because like my vision felt different, smells were stronger, I could hear everything, but it was all from that first episode of him explaining the ketones as this primary fuel substrate, this evolutionary fuel substrate.
Yep.
I wasn't trying to fix anything. I played with every nootropic, synthetic and otherwise. And then, wait a minute, I can make this molecule that makes me feel like I have a gear I didn't know existed.
And babies are born in ketosis, and we just lose that ability to have that experience. I had the same experience, Molly, and I remember, as if it wasn't bad enough that I talked too fast, I got hyperverbal.
Oh, same.
Because
Yes.
it's like a light switch. That's how I and I was already relatively healthy, but like that light switch, you feel it and you never forget it. And speaking on your product, Molly, was funny. So my final day of grad school, I had to take what's called a comp exam. And essentially it's 10 hours worth of exams. So it's 10 exams that are each an hour long, 10 individual exams. It's crazy. It was a crazy day.
That's a lot.
I had a gigantic bag of Keto Brains. This was before we had even met. I just had your stuff.
Love it.
And like my French press got me through those 10 hours.
I love it.
And it was incredible. Like no food, because I wanted the ketones because I was performing better with them, but I was, it was like, you needed something as like a nervous habit while you're taking your exam. So, and so it was like a practical experience. And then when it was cool, when I got to meet you at KetoCon a couple of years ago, it just like the whole thing kind of came full circle. Your product is fantastic. If people are looking to get away from sugar in their coffee and they want something that's actually going to benefit them too, I just can't recommend it. Highly
Well, and
enough.
that product came out of like I'd already been playing with nootropics and supplements and dialing in all the things when I met keto, and Keto Brains came out of, you start with the C8 oil and everything ends up in the coffee. And I was opening capsules of what I knew to be kind of the perfect morning stack. And then I heard Don DeAgostino talking about how his dog Scooby had gotten into his container of Quest Nutrition C8 powder. And I was like, wait, there's C8 powder? Like I totally skipped over the fact that the dog ate it. And Keto Brains really was a tool that I constructed for myself after going keto and getting into intermittent fasting and still wanting to leverage all of these molecules that I knew were amazing for other reasons. And that became the morning stack. And when I decided to make it a product, coming from the industry where I was a buyer and everyone was making beautiful products with really bad ingredient profiles, I stuck to my guns in keeping the doses high and in keeping the quality of the ingredients the same quality I would use if I was still concocting it myself, which, is challenging because it's not cheap to make, but it's really neat to have created a product where like there is no BS. There's no BS behind it. It's exactly that. Like that's that.
Well, thank you, Jay, for introducing it to me. And thank you, Molly, for sharing a little bit of your story. And I'm glad, man, and the commentary that I knew that this commentary that you had on this particular story with the type 3 diabetes was going to be perfect. And on a personal note, Keto Brains has officially become like a vacation item for me. I'm packing a bag with me in my socks and underwear if I ever leave.
No, I need to send you more packets. You need packets.
No, I'll just take the full bag. It's okay. But Molly, listen, I would love to have you back more often just to talk, to nerd out about this stuff, because I just learned a lot. But
I'd love to.
Well, we're going to do it. But before you go,
yes.
Lauren generated a name across all of our monthly sponsors. I sent it to you. So I would love for you to announce it to the ladies and gentlemen, the name generated by Lauren from across all the monkey sponsors.
Oh, the monkey sponsors.
We
That's
do
great.
that.
We need some more Keto Brains.
So they're gonna get a bag of Keto Brains and also a round of silver. And the winner is
We have Renee Nordness. Apologies
Renee.
if I say it wrong.
No, that's it. Renee.
Yep.
I know that name. She's been a sponsor for a long time.
That's great.
Well, listen,
I just want to say,
Thank you, guys.
I want to say one last thing, just because Keto Brains was a part of the last 2 perpetual health retreats. And I just want to say this, you want to get involved with this company because Molly and I spoke, and last year she was ready to ship some stuff out, and then they had some kind of like packaging snafu. You remember this, Molly?
Yes.
Yeah. And when
It was always fun.
yeah. And, we were like, well, what are we going to do? They just went above and beyond, still sending the sample packets, creating those little cards that had the Perpetual Health logo on it, this whole thing. I mean, you find a company that's going to go to great lengths to do that, to help, make something that we were putting on more successful. That's a company that you want to get behind. So just to publicly thank Molly and Keto Brains for just being that kind of a company. We need more companies like that.
There you go.
Well, thank you both for doing what you do and being who you are, because it makes it a pleasure. It's not always this way when you're partnering with friends in the community. So I really appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Hey, the good times have only just begun. Thank you so much, Molly. And
thank you.
All the best
Have
to
a good
you.
one.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
All right. There goes Molly Rucker of Keto Brains to talk about type 3 diabetes and, of course, a little bit of the backstory, because I wanted to know how the hell all that worked out.
It's funny. I didn't actually know any of that stuff either. And what she said was exactly what I did. I found MCT oil powder for the first time, made by Quest. They must have been the only company that made it. And so as I was unraveling my journey, like in 2014, so now over 10 years ago, I was doing that same thing. I was like putting a little bit of this, and then I'd be like, this is good. So I'm going to put a little bit of that. And I was assembling all those ingredients. The only thing that she has in Keto Brains that I had never heard of before was alpha GPC. That's super interesting acetylcholine precursor. It's a neurotransmitter. That was the only thing I was unfamiliar with. And so Keto Brains actually introduced me to that as well. So it was very cool. I was putting all those things in individually, and it's a lot easier when it comes in a packet that tastes good and that makes your coffee nice and creamy without anything else.
Yeah, I'm glad to know I can have it more than once a day too. That's nice.
Yeah.
So we have 20 minutes left in this first hour. It gives us just enough time to do all this other stuff.
Okay.
Before we get into RFK, did the Health and Human Services guy ever get back to you? The one that quit?
No, but I have another.
Tom Corey, was that his name?
Oh, yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah.
I emailed him, and I have another email address that I found that I'm going to try and email. I didn't hear back from that first email, so I'm working on it. If anybody out there knows him, I would love to talk to him.
That's an interview I assure you nobody's looking for.
I know.
We might be the only ones that are interested in talking to him.
I know, which is weird. Like, so get back to us. I mean, in all fairness, the email address I have might not be correct. We were guessing based on, you company and the name and all that, and you just put it together and you go, well, this is probably an email address. But so it made, and I tried to get in touch with him on LinkedIn, but I don't have LinkedIn Pro because I don't pay for LinkedIn, and in order to message somebody who's not in your network, blah,
we'll
blah,
figure it out.
Anyway, but yeah, I would love to talk to him too.
Okay, so then here it is. RFK Jr. was on with it's on News Nation with Chris Cuomo.
My favorite.
Yeah, I know. And but there were some things that he dropped in here, and the Vigilant Fox turned it into a thread of some short, easily digestible clips. Here's the first one, unveiling new reforms that could transform how this country treats vaccine injuries.
Right.
But before sharing the details with Chris Cuomo, he exposed just how bad things really were inside of the Department of Health and Human Services. Take a listen to this, about minute 43.
What Elon did with our agency is going to help our agency. So I'm very grateful to him he came in for the first time with a real org chart for the agency. The agency org chart when I arrived was incomprehensible. There was no chain of command. There were people operating in all these different silos and fiefdoms. And they were so territorial and so self-serving that they were selling patient information to each other. So I tried to get the CMS patient information, which belongs to the American people and belongs to HHS. And the sub-agencies said we have to buy it from them. And it doesn't make any sense. There are sub-agencies.
They were charging actual money, or is that just like bureaucratic jargon?
It sounded like money.
They refused to give us patient data. This is depersonalized data. Mm-hmm. And we need to make America healthy again. What Elon is doing is he's using AI to improve health, to improve efficiency, to improve delivery. And he had a bunch of geniuses come over to the department, create an org chart that worked, and consolidate. We have many divisions that are doing the exact same thing. We need to consolidate them and give them a sense of mission, to invite them to participate in making our country healthier again. And I think that's why we're getting, a very, very strong, enthusiastic reaction from people within the agency. And of course, it's hard to lose workers. We're going from 82,000 workers to 62,000. That's tough on everybody. But I think in the long run, we're going to have much greater morale in a demo.
They cut
20,000.
They cut 2/3 of the official population of this village. And I'm sure that they can take more out of there too. Okay, the official population of my hometown is like 32,000 people. They cut 2/3 of that just off the top. It was redundancy.
I mean, Frank, think about this. I mean, so the people that are arguing against these kinds of cuts, they have no leg to stand on because RFK was saying there was no org chart. You don't even know who's who and where's where. So to say that a cut like this, because I've seen, people saying, oh, they're right? I mean, isn't that sort of the basis, sort of from that article from the Post saying, well, I know they were talking about funding, but I've seen other articles like in MedPage today, they're saying, oh, all these cuts are going to cost us in a variety of areas. You can't say that. You don't even know what the organization looks like. RFK came in and said, hey, can I take a look at the organization that I'm running? And they're like, yeah, no, you can't. Why? We just don't have it. Who the hell has been running this chicken coop?
It wasn't even that like, no, it's too secret.
Right.
It's like,
no, we didn't do that.
We can't. That's not what we do here.
What is it that you
I don't know.
say you do here? Just like Office Space, right? What is it that you do here?
Here's the next one. Here's the next one on, I think this is on pharma injuries.
Let me ask you, are you going to make any investments in long COVID and vaccine injuries in terms of coming up with treatments and data to help clinicians, help their patients?
Yeah, that's going to be one of our priority focuses. We already have a division at NIH that is devoted to studying long COVID and to figuring out cures and to study, and we're incorporating an agency within CDC that is going to specialize in vaccine injuries.
Great.
Oh, those are things that are priorities for me, and also Lyme disease. These are priorities for the American people. More and more people are suffering from these injuries, and we are committed to having gold standard science to make sure that we can figure out what the treatments are and that we can deliver the best treatments possible to the American people.
Yeah, I would love to know more about what could be done about that court.
Well, yeah. I mean, and, Chris Cuomo is now all into this now because he supposedly admits that he has an injury.
I am narrowly focused.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, everything was fine when he was palling around with Don Lemon, and Don Lemon was saying that people who didn't get their COVID shot shouldn't be able to go to grocery stores. But now, since he's one of the victims, he's like, I'm demanding that we have some kind of authoritative body on jab injuries. Okay, Chris.
Right.
Great.
Authoritative body.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be an authoritative body on it. It just has to be there be no defensive Praetorian guard there.
Exactly.
Okay. I think the normal court system can do fine.
And running science the way science is supposed to be done, these things would have been identified.
Yeah, just allow people to bring things to a court of law, not a special designated one where moneyed interests are making sure that only the results only go one way, and that and operations go on as normal. Here's another one. This is called Operation Stork Speed.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're talking about nutritional standards for things like baby, infant formula and everything.
So important.
Yeah.
I am narrowly focused, not on politics, but on making my agency serve the American people and making America healthy again. We launched Operation Stork Speed to improve our capacity to have good, nutritious baby formula for the American public that doesn't have heavy metals or other poisons in it. We've met with the major food processors and told them we want chemical dyes out of all of our foods, that we want to reduce the sugar. We are reforming the SNAP program so that we're not poisoning kids. 10% of SNAP is now spent on soda drinks, which are giving diabetes to children, which 38% of American teens are now pre-diabetic or diabetic. When I was a kid, it was 0. Today, it's 38% of our teens, 50% of our adults. We're spending more on diabetes now than we're spending on the military budget. It's going to sink our country, and we are starting kids addicted to these sugar drinks when they're very young in poor communities. We're getting rid of that. So, we're reforming every part of the agency to make sure that our food supply is good and that we have the healthiest kids in the world, which we had when I was a kid.
Oh boy, man, there's so much in there. There's so much in there. And I ever tell you the story when I worked at the hospital, and I was using the room of a pediatrician who was out that day. So I was seeing my clients in her office. In the corner of her office of a pediatrician was a gigantic box. I won't use the brand name. One of the most, well-known baby formulas. And so, me being me, I go over and I examine. Because, I don't have any kids, so I don't have any real reason to necessarily even know what's in a baby formula. I was horrified at just being able to really understand fully what's in, it's just corn syrup solids and soybean oil and fake everything. Even the vitamins were synthetic. Nothing was real in this thing. And this is the food you're feeding the baby right off the bat. And like we were talking with Molly, babies are born in ketosis. They are building their microbiome. They're building so many things to think that it is at all. And you wonder why children, we now have type 2 diabetes instead of adult onset diabetes. That name had to be changed because young children were developing diabetes, and you can't call it adult onset anymore because children were getting it. You don't think that starts with the garbage that we're feeding children from the day they enter this world? It's disgusting. And to see a pediatrician with boxes of it stacked up told me
they send them. When you give birth, when Lauren, the hospital gives you a goodie bag when you go, and inside the goodie bag they give you at least a couple of 6-packs of these 2-ounce bottles of Enfamil or whatever the hell else it is. So I mean, it's just it's a stocking stuffer from doctors and hospitals.
I don't know if this particular pediatrician was being paid, but a lot of them are. I mean, this is how the system works.
But to your point, how much nutritional education are they given? A lot of doctors are probably just like, okay, hey, out of the goodness of their heart, here's something to help at home. They probably don't think anything of it.
Or even worse, they just like you said, it's either pure ignorance or they think that nutrition doesn't matter, which, believe it or not, there are doctors who think it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's shocking to me because of how much I understand biology and biochemistry that anybody could call themselves a medical professional and think that food doesn't play into the health puzzle. I'm up against a cognitive dissonance that I can't overcome. How can you think that? But many of them I've talked to and spoken to, either in person or online, that really don't think it matters. So they look at what I do as kind of
Well, I mean, and then forget about the doctors who will take their sides. There's doctors who stand up against all this stuff and others who just toe the line and all whatever. But I've seen some of the back and forth, some of the people expressing that, some kind of disapproval that RFK would dare get in the way of somebody's soda, that he would dare be so such a tyrant. And these are from the people who are supposedly MAGA and shit too.
Yeah, there's a whole burgeoning scandal of people who were apparently, I'm not an investigative journalist, but I feel like that's the next step on the ladder for me, because I find myself, half my time is spent on, well, maybe I'll have to say a third. So a third of my time is spent on biochemistry and biology. A third of my time is spent on the political or just corruption landscape when it comes to nutrition and science, and the other third is JFK. That's pretty much my entire, my entire existence. And so there's this whole thing running around. So I first saw Chris Ann Hall comment on something, because there were these influencers that were saying that RFK wanting to remove some of these products from the SNAP program was anti it was, anti-MAGA, anti-freedom, anti-liberty. And I'm just thinking, whoa, hold on a second. We're not talking about telling you can't go out and buy whatever you want with the money that you make at your job. We're talking about taxpayer dollars funding things that are going to keep these kids sick, keep them in the system. Then the pharmaceutical companies can come in and help treat the diseases that they were given by the program that the taxpayers paid for and gave them in the first place. It's this whole incestuous thing. And all of these people and names that people recognize were coming out and they were writing from the same script. And even like the Laura Loomers of the world were like hammering Kennedy. But again, like Robert Barnes says, she never met a controversy she doesn't like to stick her nose in. Just dead wrong about this, just dead wrong. And then Riley Gaines, who people probably know, she came out and admitted that I have a tweet from her. She said, they offered to pay me to post, but I give it a big fat heck no. And then RFK responded to that tweet saying, thank you for your integrity, Riley. It's troubling that some companies now think they have the right to demand taxpayer money to poison our children.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't see the Riley Gaines thing.
Yeah.
Here, and but I did see some people saying, and I don't know if it's just maybe they believe it, but they could just be paid to go out there and to show themselves as being willing to be a moderate on certain things. There's nothing moderate about. Number one, SNAP and all these other programs are illegal. They are illegal in their very nature. You can go on and on about what net positive good it may serve or have served in the past, whatever the hell. In New York, you had Mayor Bloomberg years ago who was shoving his snout into people's businesses, personal business, telling them how much Coca-Cola they could buy with their own money, not just with their EBT cards.
Right.
Okay? That's different. That being said, SNAP existing at all, people are calling it bureaucratic overreach. SNAP existing at all is bureaucratic overreach. Okay. Yeah. But if you have been forced, and I understand people are finding themselves in all kinds of financial dire straits these days, but if you have been forced to surrender your independence to the point where you have to allow for the government to feed you with money that it doesn't even have the authority to distribute in the first place, then there is no reason to subsidize junk food.
Right.
No reason, which only exacerbates the health crisis, which you're probably, if you're getting food subsidized, your health care is probably subsidized as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So to think that people are crying foul because HHS wants to prioritize better quality food for dependents in hopes that their health outcomes are better is such a ridiculous self-imposed loss.
I know, Frank. I mean, again, there are so many different angles we can approach this from, but the company that was doing this is called Influenceable, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know. And the social media accounts were allegedly promised $1,000 per post to oppose the push to reform sugary drinks for SNAP. So, and of course, Influenceable works with lobbying firms like the American Beverage and Cart Choice in the industry. They receive funding from Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So, we all know where this is coming from. And these influencers are willing to put their name to these pre-written scripts for $1,000. So all I'll tell you is that I don't care if this person is politically aligned with you. You have to think for yourself. I don't care if you like even some of what this person reports. I'm not telling you that every person who reported this or took this side was doing it for money. Maybe they actually believe this, in which case we just have a genuine disagreement. If they took the money, then I wouldn't trust anything else they say. But there are a variety of ways to approach this. Like you said, we can have the argument as to whether or not this should even exist in the first place. But if it's going to, I was never a supporter of the sugary drink tax because I've seen this being wielded in other countries that they're proposing things like a meat tax in other countries. So I don't want the government determining that level of taxation on the public. But when it is already tax dollars, then it's a completely different story. And I saw Chris Ann Hall break that down, and I didn't understand the story yet. And then the next day, the story broke. So she must have been ahead of the curve, as she usually is. And I was like, oh, I agree with her on this. Why is Ian Miles Chong, as an example of someone who is on this, on the dole, apparently, posting these pre-recorded or pre-written scripts? I'm like, why would he say that? That's a stupid take.
I don't even think he's American.
No, he's not. And all these like kind of nameless, faceless accounts, like the ones they name, you can go find this story on, I found it on Not the Bee, but you can find it in a bunch of places. But Ian Miles Chong, Clown World, Eric Doherty, Chad Prather, not Jerome Powell. Like I've seen these accounts all over, and I'm sure there are more, but it's disgusting what people will sell out for. And this is just like, again, you can have a difference of opinion, but when you're talking about taxpayer dollars, it is sort of the definition of government overreach already. But I don't want to exacerbate this problem. And it's crazy to me watching people comment, like in Laura Loomer's comment section. Yeah, I knew Kennedy was a, Democrat all along, and he's just bad. He's just, because apparently this was a program that was being originally backed by the Harris campaign. And I'm like, listen, none of this should be, a partisan thing. At least getting to health. Whether the program exists or not, that's, again, a separate argument. I'm here for the health side of it. And I don't care if a Democrat is in line with this. That's a good thing. We don't want SNAP benefits going to sugary drinks. That is a good thing. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican. I feel like once we get labels on ourselves, we put ourselves in the box, then we are trapped in this stupid logic trap that we create for ourselves. And we just have to agree with anything. If it's Democrat, it must be bad. And if it's Trump, it must be good. I don't know. It just seems overly simplistic to me. And to assume that RFK is wrong here, because it was something that may have been supported by the Harris campaign, I just don't understand.
I don't know what is a 2 liter of RC Cola go for today?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing, right? Artificial subsidies of the products in the first place.
I'm just saying. I mean, let's say you take your EBT card to AMP or Grand Union, if that even exists anymore. And you pick up some hamburger meat, and you pick up some eggs, and you pick up, some celery or something like that. And then what? Was it really that much of a burden to produce $5 cash to go and buy a bottle of soda?
Right.
Come on.
I know.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. In the fact that there was any kind of pushback from so-called MAGA on this. It's please, that's just so stupid. It's so ridiculous, especially since this is one of those things. You talk about Doge, and a lot of people have mixed opinions on what is actually going to be able to work out in the end.
Right.
After the course of, apparently he's got a charter from the White House, Elon Musk does, to have all of these audits and all of this stuff, all of these systems mapped out, all the waste and fraud and all that shit mapped out and categorized by July of 2026. Well, I mean, whatever that's nothing but bookkeeping at that point. Mm-hmm. Everything else that has to be done is legislative, and then of course at the end of every piece of legislative action is a culture that is either going to embrace this change, or the second they have a chance, political culture especially, the second they have a chance, put it right back in with simple majorities or whatever the hell else. So people are up in the air with how this is going. Anything meaningful is going to be achieved, even though we're getting tons of validation and we're getting tons of exposure for this shit. But what's going on at HHS under the direction of Robert Kennedy? That's something that could actually have very important impacts immediately.
Yes,
I mean, you're talking immediate policy changes that goes and trickles down on a nutritional level to people all over the place, from what is recommended to what is subsidized. It will have impacts. Some people, you can lead some people to water, and you can't force them to drink, of course,
yeah. But that's why the dietary guidelines, while like I've said this a million times on this show, we don't follow them. I don't follow them. You don't follow them. Your audience who listens to what I have to say usually doesn't follow them. But that's the food that's served in hospitals. That's the food that's served in the military. That's in the school lunch programs. So it does matter that all of that is cleaned up. And I don't understand, again, RFK has been in there for how many, you can still count it in weeks or days. And people are like, oh, he hasn't done this yet. And I'm like, good Lord, did you just hear what he said? There wasn't an org chart. Can we just cut the guy a little bit of slack? Like, I'm the first one. I'm not a fan of any politician. I try to call balls and strikes. And so far, there's not enough of the game that's been played yet to decide whether we've won or lost. So I just think it's, and again, where were all these people when Amos Miller, the Amish farmer, was being harassed by the USDA and by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture? Where's the outrage over that? That's government overreach, telling a farmer he can't feed his own family with the food he grows on his own land? Government overreach?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, your priorities are all kinds of messed up if you think that this is a problem that's coming from HHS right now.
Well, that's a good cap for the first half. When we come back, there's plenty more that we're going to be able to fiddle with over here, including, I think, some flexibility to open up the lines. So you can send some questions and comments and thoughts to quitefranklysuperchat.com, and we'll read them on the air live. To the Rumble rants, we'll read them on the air live. To the gold pills on quitefrankly.tv and wherever else. We will talk to you in just a moment, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome to Intermission. Yeah, Intermission.
Evil, I just misunderstood.
Man, you know, with Molly's a wealth of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I expected her to be able to come on and talk about things that were featured in the Keto Brains blog, and also the story and founding and formulation of Keto Brains itself. But man, you guys are like nerding out with like personalities and researchers, like as I would exchange baseball cards or something like that. I was like, damn, this is.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to her quite a few times, and we got to meet at KetoCon formally. But she was like with Justin from Yes Cacao. She had a booth with her brother, I think, who helps run the company, and I was able to talk to her, but there's like hundreds of people around. So we didn't like have a chance to dialogue like that. That was actually a lot of fun. It would be cool to like set the stage with a specific topic that does relate to Keto Brains and have like a segment on that. I think I'm very impressed with the biochemical knowledge. I think that would be a lot of fun. But yeah she's and it's it was cool to hear the background because I hadn't heard the history of the company either.
Well, here's the big one for you. Actually, let me give you these super chats. Let's just see where they are, and then we'll get to this other thing before we shift gears a little bit more. TGIF Frank and Jay, great information as always when you two are together. I got to get moving on Keto Brains. Jay Britz says that over on quitefranklysuperchat.com. And on Rumble, we have a couple of ranters out there. The first one is from Rubino, 82, says, happy birthday, Frank. Thank you. Oh, Jay, did you know that I'm turning 74 on Saturday?
I heard. You look fantastic. You are the true OG for longevity.
I know. I
want your secrets.
Jeez. Oh, my gosh. Thank you, Rubino. Rubino again says, I've seen some Indian-run gas stations with handwritten notes on their beer doors that says EBT on beer.
Whoa. I didn't know that.
On their beer that says EBT on beer. I wonder if it's just like I wonder if there's ways that that stores and bodegas and all that stuff can charge miscellaneous prices, just
no doubt. Yeah, whatever you categorize beer as, you can just ship, you can get as long as it's the same price or whatever, and you ship. Yeah.
A 12-pack of Bud Light, if it's like I don't know how much it costs, but
yeah, I mean the system's always going to get abused, but I mean in general, if the rules are that we're trying to protect people from using taxpayer dollars to buy junk food, then that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Buy it with your own money.
Hey, would you blow me too? Says Jackson. I quit all meds several months ago, and I only take vitamins and baby aspirin. I told my doctor I don't trust known murderers. Wow, that must have. Do you still have him as a doctor?
I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that conversation.
Jeez,
You didn't bring my name up, did you?
No, please don't say.
This crazy guy on Quite Frankly told me to get rid of all my meds.
I don't trust known murderers. Tell my doctor. Okay, let's see. On pill.net, still praying for Paul Anthony Wallace interview, the fifth kind. Brewbark says that. Is that what?
Paul Anthony Wallace.
I don't know. I feel like it sounds familiar, but so many things pass my desk. Sometimes I forget. D Dale, so you can send me a reminder on that, Brewbark, and maybe a link. That would be great. D Dale, thank you. Brewbark again says, "What a 250th birthday present for our nation, an end to waste, fraud, and corruption." Well, it would be a fantastic one, no doubt. And there are some people who are very confident that there is a very hard-nosed plan to make that happen. And it is going like a war footing plan to make that happen.
I think you would have to have that, right? Given where we are.
Yeah, you'd have to.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to go gently into that good night, Frank.
No. Amethyst Cat says, "Happy Friday, Frank and Djibouti. Much love." Willie Fixit says, "It's Jehoshaphat Gulinello." Right, boy. Frank. Happy 74th. Thank you. Thank you.
That's a big one, 74.
74 years old is a big one because after that, it's 75, which is what? You 25 is your silver anniversary. Then you get a golden at 50, right?
Yeah.
What's 75?
3/4 of a century, tinfoil? I don't know.
Then you get platinum at 100?
I don't know. It's a good question.
What's between gold and platinum?
Doesn't matter anyway. The U.S. life expectancy is falling so fast, no one's going to reach it anymore anyway.
I know. 100. Oh boy. All right. Let's see.
That's not funny. That's not funny.
Well, look. This is the last thing I'll put up there. This made news earlier on this week.
Oh.
RFK this is by way of Kyle Becker at Relentless. RFK is pushing big pharma ad ban, and corporate media is panicking. So if there's another thing here that I would love HHS to do, it's something I'd said for a long time. If we can't see the Marlboro Man anymore, if we can't see Camel Joe anymore, if we don't have any of those incredible Virginia Slim commercials, Pall Mall, if we can't do any of that, then please get rid of all this shit. And you want to see the personnel cuts at MSNBC after these ads go away.
Oh, yeah. Rachel Maddow will definitely have to take another trim if that's the case.
Rachel Maddow is going to be starting a Substack.
You remember when she made fun? I was thinking about her the other day because she's just so obnoxious. But I remember she was making fun of Substack once upon a time. And it's funny because now I see a lot of those CNN and MSNBC people opening up Substacks. But I remember one day she said something along the lines of, coming to a Substack near you. I'm Rachel Maddow. Someone wrote me a joke.
It's true.
And now, like you said, she's going to be like, hey, you give me $5 for my Substack? It couldn't have happened to a nicer person.
Group of people.
They're just the worst.
Listen, I hope so. Listen, it just so happens that it's a very, very, the political impact of that will be very far reaching to the point where people will scream, it's biased.
Do you think that would be enough to make people realize how much they've been lied to about things like pharmaceuticals over the years? Like when they see the wasteland or the test pattern that becomes some of these networks when they lose their pharmaceutical advertising dollars?
Just like the universities, I wonder what kind of endowments and what kind of secondary and tertiary forms of income that these networks have. Because if the pharmaceutical leeching went away, it was no longer legal for pharmaceutical companies to advertise on television because the only people who should know about what they are creating, and doctors know because the reps show up knocking on the door every day. So if that all goes away, I think people are going to notice a great change in culture across the board at the networks, because how the hell can you possibly keep up the operation just based on ads that would be generated from these pathetic viewership numbers.
Yeah.
You can't, there's no fucking, compared to what people are pulling in viewership on the internet, talking about non-political issues, car restoration channels on YouTube that are doing better than everything. There's no way that they can justify their operations at that level with what they're pulling in. Just like we were wondering what the hell's going on Sirius XM with Howard Stern. There's no way that he is getting those advertisers in front of more than 150,000 people.
So you think that's just a Potemkin village at this point, the whole media landscape, and it's just being propped up RFK said this years ago, and I never forgot this quote. I don't know. I couldn't find it anywhere substantiated in the literature, but he's an attorney and he was never sued, and he doesn't tend to say things, especially statistically, without having some kind of understanding of it. But he said in a non-election year, 70% of the budget for advertising comes from pharmaceutical companies. 70%. That was the number.
What about an election year?
I don't know. He just said it in a non-election year. I'm assuming it goes down because you've got all the political ads. But he was so I think he was using non-election year as like a more
which
baseline.
Is still not until it becomes a little bit of a buffer, because we know behind every one of those politicians is the same pharmaceutical money.
Yes.
So maybe they divert a little bit of cash to put it into the PACs.
Yeah.
But it's still.
But even if Kennedy's number is aggressive, let's round down to half. If they lose half of their advertising budget, what is going to become of them?
CNN's not going to be able to do the countdown on New Year's Eve.
It's going to look like a Wayne's World production from the basement.
If CNN has to cancel their New Year's Eve coverage in 2027, in December of 27, if they got to cancel, and that would be hilarious.
They might be able to hire back Don Lemon. I heard he's looking for work.
Oh my gosh!
Live from Don Lemon's basement, it's New Year's 2027.
We'll know that we have broken through if they cancel the New Year's Eve coverage. All right, what else do we have over here? Linda Love. Oh, well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to tell you. I mean, if you want to, at any point you want to ever go into any more detail on the direct-to-consumer advertising, I pulled up a bunch of statistics. We don't have to go into them because I know we have got other things we want to talk about. But it's actually really shocking how much the pharmaceutical companies have lost lawsuits to the tune of billions of dollars because they violated all the rules. And I was reading to you when we were off air that in the 60s, Congress allowed the FDA to regulate the direct-to-consumer advertising, and the first vaccine to be advertised on air was the Pneumovax in 1981. And then direct-to-consumer advertising exploded after that, after the FDA eased up on its regulations for requiring risks, and they stipulated the ads must include only the major risks. And all of a sudden, there were just a million. And then you've got tune of GlaxoSmithKline, $3 billion in fines in 2012. Pfizer, 2009, $2.3 billion. This is all for violating just.
I know, but here's the thing: when you have that governor, when you have that governing entity of when the government comes in and is there to make sure that they are going to suppress just how much liability you're going to have to pay, then to say, well, then, yeah, let's continue with operations, because on average, every couple of years when we get hit with a $3 to $5 billion lawsuit, that's going to be held up against $750 billion worth of profit.
Absolutely.
It means nothing. It's like Tony Soprano paying a noise ordinance violation.
100% correct. And of course, the literature also supports the fact that in places that have more direct-to-consumer advertising, patients ask for more drugs, obviously, right? But I've told this story in the air before that Bayer did that same kind of a thing where they calculated, they had a drug that was tainted with HIV, actually, and they did the back of the envelope calculation. If we dump the drug, we lose X amount because of the production. If we sell the drug overseas and get caught, we'll have to pay fines, but most likely it'll be less than if we just dump the drug and lose the money. So what did they do? Well, it's human life on one hand, and it's, profit margin on the other hand. Obviously, we're going to pick profit margin. And so that's what they did. Yeah. They sold HIV tainted drugs, and they did get fined, but it was significantly less than if they had just dumped the supply. Those are the people that are looking out for your health. And that's who everyone's screaming and yelling about, how we have to protect them from Robert F. Kennedy and Donald Trump. I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Oh, I believe it now.
Yeah.
I believe it. I believe 100%.
Yeah.
Let me see. What else should I have? Is there anything else before I throw this one question to you. This is, well, I guess speaking of Kennedy, let's just get right to this because I just want to know your overall thoughts because nothing really groundbreaking. I think everybody got drunk on the JFK files for about, 3 or 4 days. A lot of stuff there. And it really colored in a lot of the books that have already been written.
Yeah.
And very articulately as well. So here is one post from Austere Wyatt on Twitter. I thought that this would get you going. Wyatt says the CIA removes JFK. The Warren Commission absolves the CIA. Nixon knows the CIA removed JFK. 4 of the 5 Watergate burglars work for the CIA. The CIA frames Nixon for Watergate. Ford is chosen as Nixon replacement. Ford was on the Warren Commission. Yeah, I mean, these are the kinds of logical links.
Yeah.
That it's not a stretch. It's not a reach. This is just the way things happened.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the things that start becoming more and more apparent when we get the reading material that we got from the last week or so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with no really big headlines being made since the last 15,000 documents were put out there, is there any thoughts that you want to share? Because we did a lot last week.
I mean, and just ending on that, Ford, of course. Now there's photos of the bullet wound in Kennedy's back, which is not in the back of his neck. It's in his back around T3, I think. And that's important because Gerald Ford, the man that ended up becoming president, who also sat on the Warren Commission, was the man who moved that bullet from the back to the back of the neck. That's significant when you're trying to create one bullet that goes from back to front and comes out, through where you would put a trach.
Right. Which
is actually what the doctors at Parkland did. They were trying to save his life. They were trying to help him breathe, right? That's what they did for hours. So that's interesting. Gerald Ford moves it for clarity, he said, from the back to the back of the neck. I mean, if the back and the back of the neck are the same thing, I suppose the back and the back of the knee are the same thing. I mean, they're not the same thing and they're critical pieces, but this was just sort of like, this was just sort of normal in the American public. And I think it was Alan Dulles who said something like the American public doesn't read anymore, which I think is probably why the Warren report is like 26 volumes or something. It's crazy. It took Mark Lane and Jim Garrison, I think it was like over a year to read it. But as I said, but the New York Times, I think, had an article the next day. It was like, yep, well, we're all set with that. That's good. FBI has been vindicated. Secret Service has been vindicated. But so I guess the point I'm trying to make here is also that these documents, it's going to take time. There could be things in these documents. And in fact, since I started this in high school, which it all started with my high school history teacher and my history book that said Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated John F. Kennedy. And I was like, that's weird. I mean, I knew that he was dead a couple of days later and he never went on trial. And I asked her about it. Even just simply just calling him the alleged assassin might have been better. Nope. It was like, well, I mean, what else do you think happened? And that just set me off trying to understand this. But that was before we had all these documents. So through this series of things, and the Oliver Stone film was huge because that actually caused a cascade that I believe resulted in the Assassinations Record Review Board in the 90s, which declassified a whole bunch of other documents. And so the way I've approached this, Frank, is and I was telling you this, I think the best way to approach this is that there are a whole bunch of theories you could pull together from Israel to the mob to this, to that. I am actually not super interested in that. I'm more interested in approaching this the way Mark Lane did as a defense attorney for Oswald, who never got any kind of a defense attorney. I think it's so easy to disprove the Warren report that Oswald was the lone shooter from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. And once you do that, then I would just sit back and go, okay, all right, wisdom of crowds, do your thing, right? That's all I want to prove because that's sort of the linchpin. If you can disprove that, then anything else is possible.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to be the one that solves this case. I'm not an expert in this. I just have some morbid fascination with it ever since I was a kid for whatever reason. Some things just grab you. And this grabbed me and it never let go. But there are things that you could look at that that were declassified over the course of time that have done a lot to disprove Oswald being the lone gunman. And then you want to just talk about some strange things. I want to just read you something. I remember we talked a little bit about LBJ, and there's some really interesting things about LBJ And Bobby Kennedy feeding information to Life magazine. So, you wonder, well, what could LBJ's motives have been other than being the vice president and next in line? So this is interesting. So by 1963, JFK had realized that Lyndon Johnson had become a problem as vice president, and he had been drawn into a variety of political scandals. And there was an actual, one of his henchmen had been featured on the cover of Life magazine, and they were starting to outline these scandals. So I just want you to understand this. So beginning in the summer of 1963, the magazine, based upon information fed from Bobby Kennedy at the Justice Department, they had been developing a major news-breaking piece concerning Johnson and Bobby Baker. This is just one of his henchmen. On publication, Johnson would have been finished and off the 64 ticket. And probably would have been facing prison time. And this is corroborated by Evelyn Lincoln, who was Kennedy's secretary. In her book, Kennedy and Johnson, she claims that in November of 1963, Kennedy decided that because of the emerging scandal with Bobby Baker that was already being covered on Life magazine, you can find the covers, that he was going to drop Johnson as his running mate, and he was going to bring someone like Terry Sanford, who was the governor of North Carolina at the time. That's some pretty serious motive. And in fact, there were depositions going on the day of the assassination. The day of the assassination, they were unraveling all of LBJ's corrupt dealings. And in an instant, they literally got word and they were like, that's it. Because you're not going to now be testifying against the vice president. You're now testifying against the most powerful man in the world. And so that ended. So that's just like, when people wonder.
And the country has already just suffered a horrific loss. And then you're immediately going to put Johnson under the microscope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Politically untenable. And, Johnson did wield a lot of power because he was also friends with J. Edgar Hoover, FBI director. So that's just like a side note that people don't realize. When you say LBJ was corrupt and was going to go to prison, I mean, Life magazine was in the middle of unraveling this whole thing in real time. So, but after November 22nd, and quite literally on the day of the assassination, there was testimony happening. It was like life insurance fraud. It was all kinds of bribery, all kinds of stuff. He was a scumbag Texas politician.
Okay, let me ask you one last question on this before we take a really quick break.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about what the DOJ is going to do about current, more contemporary scandals and operations that are being unearthed, and we want a little bit more sanitizing light on, and like that includes Jeffrey Epstein and everything like that. Now, knowing who he is and his ties, where a lot of the people who propped him up financially were the Maxwell line, that going right up through. I mean, that goes to so many different places.
Yeah.
And but right now, what everybody's wondering about is evidence, especially when it comes to media. Mm-hmm. It could be of the actual blackmail tapes, people that are well known in society that are committing terrible crimes against humanity, just to be able to be kept in a safe somewhere, whatever. The entire nature of blackmail. But now you go back a couple of generations to JFK. Not a lot going on as far as media. We have the Zapruder film. Is there any media, or is there any physical bits of evidence that you wish would have, if we can get anything from this, because like you said, we're not going to get some sort of a diary entry from the CIA that said, and then Agent so-and-so killed Jack, and then we sent him on leave the next day and all that stuff.
Right.
But what else could be suppressed? Gold nuggets of media, a lost bit of film from an angle that got everything that we could have dreamed of aside from Abraham Zapruder. What?
So there were a lot of people filming in the plaza that day. And what I think is, and I'm so glad you asked that question, because documents are fine. And when we come back from the break, I want to read you something that's actually also on audio that you can find all over the internet that's shocking about this, that happened the same month of the assassination. But Beverly Oliver, she was filming opposite Abraham Zapruder. So
she would get
she was facing Zapruder. So it would have been the opposite angle of Zapruder.
So she'd be looking over Jack's left shoulder.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And she was closer to the motorcade than even Zapruder was. And of course, at the end of she's also known as, or some people think she might have been the babushka lady. That may be how you may see her in like the JFK assassination jargon. But immediately upon the motorcade driving off, her film was confiscated. We don't know if it was, she doesn't really know, FBI, Secret Service. There were people walking around with all kinds of fake credentials, by the way, because the night before this event, the Secret Service were out late drinking and many of them had actually lost their credentials, believe it or not. It's not a joke. So her film was taken. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see. If the FBI still has it, and they were going to, just look at it and then give it back to her. Well, that was in 1963. She never got it back. So that's the kind of stuff that is in existence that I want to see. Recently I reached out to Robert Groden, who was the guy who first showed the Zapruder film on Geraldo Rivera's show. It was the first time the public was able to see it. He's still alive. Him and his wife, they're a team. They write books, and he compiled a DVD of all the various films that we know of that we still have, and he sells it. So I reached out to his wife and sent him a PayPal, and they're sending me the DVD that has all of the known footage from Dealey Plaza that day. So I can't wait to get that. And I'll
Oh, that's a recent transaction?
Yeah. I haven't even got it yet.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's got films that I had heard of but had never seen. So, and Robert Groden is a film guy, so he was able to like retouch them and make them, bring them to light, make them look as good as possible. And there are films that show the 6th floor book depository, and he says there's definitely movement in multiple windows on that floor. And the thing that people don't realize about that floor is that it's one big warehouse floor. So if somebody's in the 6th floor window, somebody on the other side of the building is going to see that person. Now, I know there's boxes everywhere, but it's not like it was an office space with a bunch of cordoned off, cubicles and walls. So it's very interesting. Also people in other floors, very, very interesting. So I can't wait to get that. But that's a film, the Beverly Oliver film, from the opposite side of Abraham Zapruder. So she would have been literally filming for people the grassy knoll during the shooting. Why do you think that film was absconded?
I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
Because that's the real thing there. It's one thing to say, I'm going to read through these pages because again, like I think this is how we left off last Friday, is that never discount the possibility that it's not that that frauds and fakes could have documents, faked documents, documents that were created to be able to obfuscate any kind of material evidence or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The who, what, where, why, when. Not that it was created just for our purposes over here in 2025,
right,
but that back when the CIA was investing in conspiracy theories to be able to muddy the conversation on this and to discredit people by making them seem like they're kooks and that there's no legitimacy to anything and just absolutely tainting the well. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the stuff slipped into those thousands of pages that we got were, 60-year-old bits of false bullshit that was created by the CIA.
Yeah.
What that is, I don't know. But one thing that would really trump it all would be a little bit of media. And if you're talking about not even just this, what's her name again?
Beverly Oliver.
Beverly Oliver, but who else had 8 millimeter cameras taken? I mean, this is 1963. Everybody in the United States was starting to get cameras to be able to. Millions of people across the country have footage, old family footage, no audio, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 8 millimeter. That they, brought somewhere and had music put on top of it. I watch all those compilations. My family's, somebody put a little, 1960, VACATION. It's everybody at the water park. Your 50-year-old grandfather and all, and your So I just wonder where the hell it is. There must have been so much more. That would have been one hell of a reveal if there was some media attached. The fact that we have not gotten one bit of media.
Right. And that's what I'm really, I thought about this the other day. I was like, that's what I want to see. Because technically that would be declassified, right? If the FBI has a film from the assassination, why wouldn't we see that? That's what I want to see. I'm not saying that these documents aren't valuable because I don't know. I do know historically these documents have been extremely valuable. You find declassified documents from Parkland Hospital doctors who saw an entrance wound in the throat, who later changed their story. Right. So
the medical exam. No, I remember that was part of that Francis Connolly documentary I told you about, JFK to 9/11.
Oh yeah.
He spends time talking about the Parkland Hospital medical examiner who went out and obviously wasn't briefed on what the official story was going to be, and honestly reported on the wounds at first. You know?
I think you might even be talking about the assistant press secretary who said it was just a matter of a bullet wound straight through the head, and he actually even pointed to his right temple. You know, I am more interested, like any event in life, I'm more interested in, this is why I kind of like the more modern theories that have crept up over time, I'm less interested in. I'm interested in the old school stuff, the people who were there, like the Jim Mars, his work, like the Mark Lane, he did some amazing work. Rush to Judgment, one of the first kind of like, rebuttals to the Warren Commission. I'm more interested in those interviews that happened in the 60s because there was just less muddiness to them. The people that Mark Lane interviewed, the people who weren't interviewed by the Warren Commission, it is so clear. And if you watch any of the films that are available, Frank, what do you see immediately after the assassination? Everybody rushing up the hill known as the grassy knoll. Everybody running in that direction, including police officers. Because again, it is a conspiracy, but not everybody is in on it. You know what I mean? That's not possible. And they don't need to be because they can just discredit people or ignore things. But if you watch any of those assassination films, you've got people that were standing where Zapruder was, who said, I heard shots coming from behind me. You've got people standing where Beverly Oliver was saying, I saw a puff of smoke come from right underneath that white picket fence. You had people standing on the underpass, which would have been facing, so the limousine would have been coming towards them. So the grassy knoll would have been on their left, hearing the shots and watching the gunpowder, watching the puff of smoke. And you can see footage after of hundreds of people milling around the railroad area behind the picket fence, looking for the assassin. It wasn't until later that some of these Mark Lane goes through some of this so interestingly in his documentary where these people say, that's where I saw the shots come from, the grassy knoll. And then Mark Lane would say, and what do you think now? Well, now that I've read now the Warren Commission comes out in the news reports, it must have come from the 6th floor. I must have been wrong. Wow. Like they're not doing it nefariously.
No.
They're being programmed in real time. That's why I'm so interested in the original documentation of this and not the stuff necessarily, not that it doesn't have value, but I'm so interested in what happens in the moment because you're catching people's honest reactions, and that has a ton of value. When we come back, I can tell you about just a few of those things that I had found. And then someone named Joseph Miltier, who I think is a fascinating character that nobody ever talks about, but he was in a documentary called The Men Who Killed Kennedy. And when I heard his audio and his prediction of the assassination, I was like, how is this not, it's crazy stuff.
Okay, well then let's do that in just a second. Ladies and gentlemen.
That's a tease.
A little bit of a tease. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Facing mounting criticism that lethal injection is cruel and outdated, Ohio has replaced it with a system that quickly and humanely rips off the heads of death row inmates using powerful robotic arms. The new device is designed to be as humane as possible, emitting soothing white noise and putting prisoners on a cushioned seat before its metallic talons dig into their necks and painlessly wrench their heads off. Ohio Department of Corrections Director Gary Moore praised the machine, saying, quote, our new system is a hallmark of compassion. Now these deaths will be pain-free because the machine's claws are coated with topical anesthetic. Quickly pulling off a prisoner's head is considered less cruel than lethal injection, which requires 3 separate chemicals to first stop the prisoner's breathing, then paralyze their muscles, and then finally induce cardiac arrest, while this new method of quickly crushing the detached head ensures a mercifully swift conclusion. The machine has already been used at Ohio's Granville prison, where yesterday it executed death row inmate Carl Ray Allen. Witnesses say his death was peaceful and relatively painless.
Mr. Allen was executed by head ripping off at 3 o'clock this afternoon. He died instantly. The machine was fast, very fast. I Never seen anything move that fast.
Psychologists believe the new method also eases the mental burden on prison employees. The head ripping off machine doesn't require an operator to flip a switch because it automatically kills anyone who sits in its chair. The machine also handles the prisoner's remains with dignity. And Ohio isn't the only state changing the way it handles capital punishment. Last month, Texas unveiled the Machinator, which humanely squishes up to 50 prisoners at once. And in Louisiana, death row prisoners can choose to become organ donors and have their guts sucked out through an industrial tube. Coming up next, is anything valuable buried in the woods behind my house? Our team of investigators finds out.
I have a serious cramp in my lower left side right now. It like hurts. I'm gonna.
Those are
was
classics.
So funny.
Yeah.
So
the Onion,
painfully funny.
The Onion about 13, 14 years ago, nobody is, I mean, they were incredible. I mean, they went places that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
I want to play, I still want to play some of their other ones that I know, I don't know. But you want to know what I want to do real quick? I want to show you something.
Stand up. I had to stand up during the break because I was cramping in my lower left side. I stood up during the break.
I love the use of language. Like when she said painlessly and humanely wrench a person's head off. The wrenching of a person's head.
I love the visuals, like with the, and then they take care of the remains too with the flamethrowers.
How can you humanely wrench a person's head off?
It's the amazing like deadpan delivery that really like gets you. I think that's the juxtaposition,
No, they were masters of their craft. And so you know what? Real quick. Oh wait, you said you had to read something.
Oh, I mean,
do that because I want to show you something that's a little bit off topic, and I'll just save that for afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
There's a million things we can do, and we can do the JFK stuff again anytime you want to. Like I said, I personally would love to go to Dealey Plaza and do a thing.
Especially if anything is relevant in the news.
Yeah,
that triggers another part of the story that needs to be told. Because I mean, we can do anthologies of these.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many details, Frank. Like. Part of the declassified documents in 1999 found the secretary who was on the 4th floor, supposedly beneath Oswald. And after the shooting, she went down the stairs and she never saw Oswald pass her on those stairs. So she would have had to. And then there's a receptionist who said that at the time of the shooting, she was literally giving Lee Harvey Oswald change for a Coke. The Coke, by the way, that he was drinking when the police officer and the manager of the Texas School Book Depository showed up. According to the Warren report, 72 seconds later, Oswald's on the 2nd floor drinking a Coke, calm, cool, and collected. And this woman, Geraldine Reed, said she was giving him change at the time. I mean, stuff like that, he would never have been convicted on eyewitness testimony. Never, ever. But that's just like some of the stuff that, over the years I've read about and have seen in various documentaries. But I want to read just something about Joseph Miltier, because this is about a plot the same month in Miami. And what's crazy about this plot is there are so many parallels, but I just want to read to you what this guy had to say. This is from a foundation that has basically archived all this Kennedy research stuff. And there's audio. I've heard this audio transcript. I can't remember where I heard it. I think I might have heard it in the documentary, The Men Who Killed Kennedy. But 13 days before Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, a man named Joseph Miltier was tape recorded telling Miami police informant William Somerset that the murder of Kennedy, quote, was in the working. And that the best means of killing Kennedy was, quote, from an office building with a high-powered rifle. This is days before the assassination. And that, quote, they would pick up somebody within hours afterwards if anything like that would happen, just to throw the public off. Miami police notified the Secret Service. And there are indications that an unannounced motorcade in Miami scheduled for later that month was canceled. After the Kennedy assassination, informant Somerset spoke with Miltier again on the phone. Police and FBI interviews with Somerset revealed that Miltier was jubilant and said that, quote, everything ran true to form. I guess you thought I was kidding when I said he would be killed from a window with a high-powered rifle. I mean, so now you want us to believe that a guy who defected to Russia, came back, was out there passing out pro-Castro leaflets stamped with an address, 554 Camp Street, the office of a former FBI agent, right? And that this is the guy, this lone nut, showed up to kill the president exactly the way this guy said it was going to happen only weeks before in a different city with almost an identical set of circumstances. I mean, come on.
Hey, you know, the other thing, what makes it abundantly clear, especially when we saw it, you know, that was what we got, I think, on day one with this latest tranche. And that was the very, very sad, dejected telegram about Castro's receiving the news of Kennedy being killed.
Yeah.
He was upset because he knew that Kennedy did not want war. Yeah. You know, I mean, it was honestly, anti-Castro people had a lot more of a gripe with JFK than anybody else.
Absolutely.
So to say that, well, you know, we have a pro-Castro, you know, it's the communists, it's the commie, like,
Dude, there's just so much here.
The motive does not line up. The whole Cold War motive just doesn't line up with this in '63.
And there was a cop named Roger Craig. I remember his name because I remember the running back for the San Francisco 49ers back in the day, Roger Craig. Different guy, but he had said a variety of things. He was actually, you know, like, I think like police officer of the year in 1960. But of course, after the Kennedy assassination, where his version of events differed from the narrative, he was then turned into a heretic and all that, as is what happens with anybody who refuses to change their story, including some Parkland doctors who refuse to change their story after the fact. But he had said that he saw Oswald get into a car after drive away, and that later on, when he was in the police station, he went into the captain's office and they were talking, and he said, "Is this the guy that you saw leave?" And he said, "Yes." And a whole variety of exchanges happened. But he also said that Oswald, because remember, Oswald was interviewed for 12 hours and all the notes were destroyed. No notes. Yeah. I mean, why would you keep your notes? This is only the assassination of the president. Oh, also, by the way, the autopsy notes of the two Humes and Boswell who did the autopsy, they also burned their notes because they said there was blood on it and they didn't want it to become a spectacle.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's just normal stuff you do when the murder of the president has happened, of course, right? But
spectacle. They tried that with what's his McCall, Osama bin Laden.
Oh yeah. I remember
when they threw him into the sea. Mm-hmm. They were so concerned about traditional Islamic burial,
right,
that they just quickly threw him into the ocean. And they said they didn't want to make a spectacle, even though when they bombed out Iraq and they killed Uday and Hussein.
Yeah,
I remember when that happened. It was, I think, Uday and Hussein in their body bags was on the front page of the New York Times or the New York Post.
Hussein too, right? Didn't they have his? Didn't they show
his hanging video? His hanging video got around, like him walking up to the gallows and stuff. I don't know, but his sons, their dead faces were all over New York newspapers.
And this is why this matters, Frank. The reason the Kennedy assassination matters is because the playbook is always the same. It's always, the excuses are always the same.
It's the same organization.
Yeah. And anyway, he had Roger Craig to close that gap. He had just said that Oswald said something to the effect of, he said something to the effect of, well, everyone's going to know who I am now. And what's interesting is the Warren Commission turned that around to seem like a brag. And if you watch this Mark Lane film called Two Men in Dallas, it's like a 45-minute film. It's on YouTube. You can find it. Go watch it. It's incredible. They interview Roger Craig. He tells his entire story, including what they did to him, like literally trying to kill him. And eventually he died of a gunshot wound to the chest. Of course, it was a suicide. But he had said, and when Oswald said that, now everyone's going to know who I am, he said, it wasn't a brag. You know how like words just are words, but the context and the manner in which they're spoken matters? He said, Oswald said it as if somebody who had just had their cover blown. He said it was not a brag. He said, I'm hearing him say this after what had just transpired because he was starting to drag other people into this. Whose car was that? It was Ruth Payne, the woman he was staying with. And he said, don't drag her into this. And then when he realized what was going on, he said, one of the few things we have any eyewitness testimony other than what Oswald was said, when he was being transferred in between rooms, the few things that he said, like, I'm a patsy, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Roger Craig said he heard him say, or he did say, great. Now everyone's going to know who I am. And he said it was not a brag. It was as if someone who knew that his cover was blown.
He knew he was made.
Yeah. And I mean, and again, Oswald has always had all the fingerprints of intelligence in a variety of ways for a variety of reasons. And there are people who looked into him, and every one of those people were either shut down or were made to retire unceremoniously, including State Department officials who were like, there's all these military age men defecting to Russia. Are any of these, intentional defectors? Or, and some guy named Otemka at the State Department said he got a list and said Oswald's name was on that. And that's why the CIA opened a 201 file on him, because someone had opened their big mouth and kind of raised eyebrows about this person named Lee Harvey Oswald that had defected to Russia. I mean,
next time we get into this, obviously there's so much.
Yeah, it's like endless. It's like Mel's hole.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm still very, very impressed with how far you can go with this stuff. But we got to talk. I mean, once we empty the tank on Oswald a little bit more, then we got to talk about Rubenstein.
Yeah.
I want to.
We can do it.
That's just crazy. It's just like one cleanup guy after another. The cleanup guy goes away too. It's just.
I guess right before he was supposed to have a second trial and have the trial moved out of. It was going to be a change of venue because he didn't feel like he could get a fair trial where he was, because he was also afraid he was going to be murdered. He got a mysterious visit by a doctor because he was sick or something, and the doctor gave him some injections of medication, and then miraculously was stricken by an extremely aggressive cancer and died almost immediately after that.
A turbo cancer?
Turbo cancer, if you will. I mean, just fascinating stuff. Again, how many coincidences have to line up before you at least, if you're sitting on a jury, even just the things I presented here tonight, you'd have to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It's just, and the fact that no one actually saw him do the job is fascinating. It's
so
amazing.
much.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? At least this episode lived up to its title. Type 3 diabetes, MAHA.
We go everywhere.
MAHA and JFK follow-ups. That's the only thing we weren't able to do is open lines.
I'm sorry about that.
One of these nights we just will. We say, hey, listen, the floor is yours, and we'll just improv with whatever the hell you got. Into Rumble, Linda Love says, hi, Frank. Your Quite Frankly Superchat.com doesn't work for me. The screen stays white. Anyway, if anybody has a suggestion, a good place where I can just re-forward the URL. I mean, that's Stream Elements. It worked for a while, and some people get through just fine. I mean, Jay Britz and Stowstube, but I get this too. That some people have a hard time sending a super chat, and sometimes it's just they get 404'd. Other times the super chat will show up late in rare instances. I'd rather somebody just get rejected than have it show up late.
When I use things like Brave, sometimes I have to turn the shield off in order to get through. So
I don't know.
Could be somebody's browser thing, but
maybe. Either way, she says, great show, guys. Loved meeting Molly too. Thank you, Linda. Hope all's well with you.
Hi, Linda.
Haywood Jablomi says the JFK, RFK, MLK files will not name a killer. They will form a pattern of cover-ups of same agencies, governments, and people. Yeah. It'll be circular information. No doubt about it.
But if you know what you're looking for and you know the story, you can find the pieces that fit what you need. I agree. There's never going to be like, this person did this, because that just doesn't even exist. But what we've learned is extremely valuable, again, in building the defense for Oswald.
Yeah. Tommy Jekyll says, Frank, Robert Grodin has a book, JFK Absolute Proof, that he and his wife, Janet, are selling directly. It can be had the same way Jay got the DVD.
Oh, yes. The book is coming too. I ordered the book too.
You got it too?
Yeah, I'll bring it in and show it to you. Apparently, it's a heavy coffee table book. I cannot wait to get it. I'll bring it in.
Jay will read it in an afternoon. Has something.
I'll cliff note it for you.
It has something like 1,000 photos. A coffee table queen.
Yes.
There you go.
I can't wait.
Okay. Haywood again says, it's the same thing.
Oh.
Form patterns to cover for the same people and organizations. And then Tommy Jekyll, the same thing. I hope you guys didn't get charged twice for the same. It posted twice. Anyway, I don't know. Okay, let's see here. Chai Possum over on QuiteFrankly.tv says, per Cali Means on X, currently over $10 billion per year goes from the federal treasury to soda companies. Wow. Gosh, just please give me a
the mess we are in.
Give me, if they can just give me $250,000. No, give me $350,000. Because remember, far more money. It's not even just the money that they took directly out of our payroll. They took far more money out in loans, pledging us as collateral.
Oh, sure.
So give me $500,000. Make sure I don't pay into anything ever again. Just like when the guys in Armageddon get to state their terms for going.
Right.
You know, they said, and also they don't want to pay taxes anymore. And they're like, oh, we'll work something out. Yeah, we're going to work something out. Okay, I want no more paying taxes for anything, and give me $500,000, and we'll call it even. You have stolen trillions from us.
Can I get land in there somewhere? I want land.
Give me an acre. Okay. Give me 1 acre and $500,000, and never tax me for anything again. And I promise I will put that to great use, and I will live a happy life, and I won't bother anybody.
Agreed. Will you still do the show?
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, this is my soul we're talking about here.
It's a labor of love.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously.
My gosh. If this wasn't a labor of love, I would have never. Nobody would. This would have been over for me in 2000.
Selling insurance somewhere.
Would have been over for me in 2009.
Yeah.
After we started paying rent at the first studio and realizing, holy shit, how are we gonna? What is this?
I know, right?
You know, where are we going with all this, Anthony? Is it going to be music that does it? Is it going to be radio? Is anybody ever going to want to listen to what we have to say? You want to talk about standing at the edge of an abyss and really not seeing what's coming. What's in forward?
I had a similar experience when I bought a music store with money I didn't have. Standing there the first day I opened the doors. I bought it from actually my former piano teacher. Anyway, long story short, I'm standing there behind the desk one day when it's officially mine, and I walk into work that first Monday morning, and I'm like, what have I done? I had no idea. What a learning experience.
I've had quite a few moments like that.
Yeah. It's scary when you take a leap into uncharted waters.
Thankfully, for the last couple of moments I had like that, Lauren was around to say, it's all right. Because she's very type B. And me, I'm type A. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, no, I had a plan. And then suddenly, after you go through with it, you realize you didn't consider a couple other things. Like, shit, I'm fucked. You know?
Best laid plans.
I know. Okay, so thank you, Chai Possum. C. Blanche, thank you. Rook Castle says, thank you, Frank and Jade Gulinello.
Jade.
Stostu sends an EMP and says, Jay Gulinello in the house again. What better excuse than that to drop a little EMP action up in here? Thank you, Frank and Jay. Always a great listen. And a quick little shout out to my partner in crime, Jay Britz. Yes, these two really humble me, and they
doing super chats.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people out there who treat this show very well every night with like little tiny comments, and they come in the form of modest tips. But you know what? It goes to keeping a lot. I mean, what we're sitting in right now.
I would rather be funded, $1 by 1 million people than $1 million by one person.
Oh yeah,
any day of the week.
I know. Well, first of all, attrition is something that whether you're a personal trainer or anything else, you deal with attrition. People come, they go for different reasons. It's not personal.
Yep.
And you hope that you create a product or a service that makes it, it's indispensable. I know I need this in my life and I got a budget for it. That's what I want to do. It's all voluntary.
Yeah.
But if you have a bunch of people on at $5 to $10 or less, a couple have to go, a couple show up, you're not fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's what that's the good thing about where we're going in the future. Yeah. And being able to set up shop, whatever the hell your shop is, in one remote part of the world, and being able to reach people 10,000 miles away.
Cool.
That's for everybody, as long as you have a concept and you have the passion.
Yeah.
Smeeze says, you have the best guests in variety, been with you since 2020. Keep going, Frank. Oh, we're going, and we're going to be expanding in April. So I hope it's an experiment that works, especially with Badlands. A lot of great people over there, and we have a good relationship, and I don't see why it wouldn't work out. But here's one last thing I'm going to throw at you. I had some opening day stuff to talk about, but I'll save that for Monday because it's there's a couple of little traditional things I'd like to do. But for now, just a little bit of perspective, and if we bleed over, whatever. This is from Historic Pics on Instagram. Now, I watch stuff like this all the time. We've done segments on this show where we just sit back and watch interviews of 100-year-old people that were conducted in 1929. So you're talking about people who were born just like a couple of years before Jefferson died, you know, and shit like that. Like, you just think about the passage of time and where we are right now. This one got me, and things like this, these little candids always get me. Now, this right here, Jay, is a moving image of a woman. There's a lady waits at Old Penn Station in New York in the 1950s. Now, they say over here on the side, you know that the station was demolished in 1963 due to declining rail travel, but this was a beautiful part of New York architectural history and, you know, public transit and all that. But here's just a woman standing stoically, elegantly in the middle of Penn Station, looking around in the 1950s, somebody behind her reading a brochure, people milling around, either doing their jobs, going to a job. You see some Navy seamen, and there's a lot of things going on, but it's just ordinary life. Mm-hmm. A little 15-second snippet of ordinary life in 1953. And when it comes to the internet every day, Jay, they say, you know, you never know who's watching. You can feel like there's nobody really paying attention to you on the internet. But if you go live, you post a picture, you post a thought, a video, whatever the hell it is, you just never know for sure who's seen it and who has formed an opinion of you based on that one little snippet of you. And the other adage goes, the internet lives forever and the internet never forgets. But thinking about this one video right here was a fleeting moment in this woman's life in the 1950s, mm-hmm. back in the day when the idea of a security camera was sci-fi.
Yeah.
Okay, this is just set up there, and there are people being caught incidentally on this little piece of moving image in the mid-20th century. And here we are, 70-something years later, about 70 years later, whatever the hell it is, and there are thousands. I mean, we're watching it right now, but this has been posted everywhere. This one has 9,000 likes or so. That means that there must be a couple of 100,000, if not close to 1 million views on this. People watching this woman. Can you imagine being able to tell her, because she's not around now, right, but tell her that one moment, that 15 seconds that you were just having a moment thinking to, what was she thinking about right there? Right. She wasn't thinking about millions of people observing her 70 years later. Yeah. On whatever the hell you could articulate the internet is. I mean, this is just, this gets me, and I can get lost in this shit for hours sometimes.
I agree. There's a fascinating element to it. And if you happen to be somebody who was alive at the time, what's also interesting is thinking about maybe even what you were doing if you knew the date. You know, I know you had the year, but that's also something that's interesting to me. But I get lost in that stuff when I think about, or when I do any of the Kennedy stuff and I'm looking at videos or films. I'm like, these people were just going about their day in 1963. You know, I wasn't around, but it is fascinating. And I love the thought about, you know, what was she thinking? What were any of those people thinking? Were they even noticing the camera? Doesn't seem like any of them are really paying it any mind either.
No.
I also noticed that it doesn't, people are walking, you know, obviously there's no cell phone, so you don't see people like buried in their own business. They're kind of paying attention to the world around them, which is something that we've lost. So there's a comparative aspect, but I like that aspect that you brought up, what is she thinking about in that moment? And she could never conceive that people long after she's gone are going to be asking what she was thinking in a moment of her life that she may not even remember.
And it's far more fascinating than people who are going to watch this episode years from now.
Absolutely.
Because we're telling people what we're thinking.
Exactly.
You know, this is a candid moment from like I said, a time where even the thought that you could have a camera set up in the corner of a room to monitor all of Penn Station, which is just common sense now. We know that at any train station, there are cameras from every angle. They're going to catch everything.
Right.
And somebody's watching them actively, and they're being stored for all time.
Right.
In case something happens. But you know, this is just a different world, and it's alien. It'd be so alien to think that, hey, you know, hey, 1929, Mr. So-and-so, Mr. Johnson, we'd like to sit you down and talk to you about your life growing up in the 1830s in Indian territory, and just, you know, just for posterity. Oh, how nice with this new, you know. I love to see what moving images. I remember in 1899 when we started getting moving images out of Paris,
right.
The Lumiere brothers or whatever, you know. So will this one? Is this a talkie?
I know.
You know, are you going to hear my voice? And to think that, oh yes, and one day, about 100 years later, at around 2005, YouTube is going to be, you know, E-Bomb's world before that.
E-Bomb's world.
We're gonna get all these videos up on the internet, and you're gonna be seen billions of times over.
And you have to think also that are we ever going to be able to reclaim some of the innocence that was in that film? I don't think so, because as you said, everybody now, I mean, forget about being filmed. Most people are walking around filming themselves. And I mean, I don't want to go off on that tangent, because that's like a whole other thing where people don't even, I feel like most people don't even live their own lives anymore.
It's crazy though, because they are, okay, so I remember, and you can go on YouTube and you can watch high school videos from the 80s, 90s,
sure.
Early 2000s. Somebody brought a VHS mini cam into the whatever the hell it was, and people are like, "Oh shit, it's a camera!" Hey, and they're, you know, whatever. It's you can walk up to a like, I always play the 3 a.m. at 7-Eleven outside of Disney World in 1980. You never see that one? I play that one.
Yeah.
One of my favorite videos on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's 7 minutes of heaven.
Yeah,
I want to be in this 7-Eleven out in Orlando in the 1980s. I want to be there so bad, and to think that people are just, you know, some people don't want to. They're a little bit shy, but most people are just like, wow, I'm on tape. Hey, what's going on? Now everybody has a camera. They are filming themselves, but they want to kill you if you film them.
Yeah,
it's crazy because they're constantly exposing themselves, but they don't want to be filmed.
It's so funny. And actually, I have, you know, of myself, movies of myself as a kid, and that's what you did back then when you realized that the camera was on you. You just acted like a jackass, right? You just like. But now that also is gone. The novelty is completely gone.
Yeah.
And to your point about the video camera, I remember I always think about this because I've never seen the footage, and for all I know, it doesn't even exist, or it does exist somewhere in somebody's basement in a VHS. But the first time I ever played in a band was at a talent show my sophomore year in high school. The first time I ever stepped on a stage and sang with a guitar around my neck. One of the things I remember, other than being like petrified beyond belief, thinking I actually wasn't going to survive the event, like actually thinking I could possibly die. I'm so nervous. I remember seeing a red light in the front row, knowing that was a video camera.
Oh shit.
And of course, just compound. I don't think there was no like other level of nervousness I could reach. I was at peak nervousness. But after the fact, now I think about it, what I would do to find that video camera, because I probably sucked. I was probably terrible, but that experience in my mind was the first time I ever played to a auditorium full of my classmates and heard an applause like that for my band. We probably sucked, but that was like the first band really that they had heard live, most of them. So they didn't know what they were doing. We didn't know what we were doing, and somebody recorded it. And I wish so badly that I could find the person who was recording it. I don't even know who it was. That someday that tape would find its way to me. So it's just interesting that you say that, because every once in a while I'll have a conversation like this and I'll remember that red light and think, man, I wish I could find that video.
Oh, I have a video. I'm trying to look at it right now. I think I might have a video of me from 7th grade. So it was 1997 or so, at my Catholic school, at the talent show, playing Creeping Death. With
we go. Same kind of thing.
I hate it.
Of course you do.
But when I watch it, I look at it and I think of, oh man, I'm just trying to look around I gotta find it somewhere, because I saved all this stuff now. So it's all here's the other one. Here's the other one. Just to dip in on it for a second. 2:30 a.m. at 7-Eleven near Disney World in 1987.
Got to make a decision between, what do we have, ma'am?
Orange and cola.
Orange and cola. Chris?
The orange.
The orange. She's going for the orange. Perhaps if we get a close-up look, we can find out the secret ingredients that makes this Slurpee a 7-Eleven Slurpee. There you go.
The freedom of 7-Eleven. That's here.
Is she wearing a uniform?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ma'am, did you get any strange people in here late at night?
Yes, we do.
I wonder what she's talking about.
Come on over, Jerry.
Now,
Here we are, searching for the people.
here's the manager.
Look, this is a special 7-Eleven. It comes equipped with dancers for your entertainment.
No cover charge.
Well, she's not really dancing. She's just standing next to the frozen foods. Hi, sir. How are you this evening?
Are you really taking pictures?
Oh, it's not on. Don't worry about it. Can you sign this form? Just kidding.
Start taking off clothes if you want. We're not.
Hey, there'll be none of that talk in this store. How you doing tonight, sir?
He's smoking it.
You're the manager here?
No, sir. He is tonight. He's the night manager.
The night manager?
Yeah, you are.
This is a fine establishment you have here, sir. Can you explain to us how come the super big gulp is 59 cents, while the regular big gulp is 69 cents?
No, sir.
So actually, you're paying 10 cents for that missing.
Right.
You know, you pay 10 cents to have less.
Right.
It's Weight Watchers, right?
Weight Watchers.
You have less.
They're both smoking. Wow.
I know. Then this guy walks in.
Have
Right
a
here.
good night.
This guy right here.
Those crazy guys.
Hi, how you doing?
Wait. If that's really got an interview here? Just needed you here. Hi.
And now comes this French chick, and she's talking into a rear view mirror like it's a microphone.
Well, I thought she had a cell phone for a second.
No, dude, I'm telling you, this is almost like a skit.
Wow.
And it's only a 9-minute video, and there's so much life in this video. There's so much life packed into this video.
But you know, Frank, this is the whole point, right? They're interacting with each other, whereas today, everybody would be interacting with themselves on their own phone.
Right.
You don't see interactions like this anymore in real life. I don't see them.
No, these are all strangers.
Patrick Dupree from France.
Hi, how you doing? My name's Ken. I'm from Orlando.
Nice to meet you, man.
Why are we coming here?
We just come here to
It looks like you've had a little trouble with your automobile.
just to buy toothpaste, because we
Juice bar.
toothpaste.
Toothpaste. You've come all the way from France to get toothpaste. Yes, that's folks. This is the international.
This is a great place, just international place.
Why the mirror? Why the mirror? Tell us.
Yeah.
Do you think we could get that mirror surgically removed from your chin?
What?
Should we get the tartar control?
Wait a minute. This is a.
Should we get that Crest tartar control?
Hey, how many cavities did you have at the last checkup, sir?
Let me see what you want to get.
I mean, I want to be there.
No, I know. It's such a the video is such a novelty to them that it's like it's bonding strangers. Like again, you couldn't. I mean, I suppose because it's not a novelty anymore, but you could never recreate that because there's nothing that novel. And maybe people are just different now. But that's I had seen it before. I don't know if I'd seen as much of it as that, but that is fascinating that they're really mostly strangers. And that guy behind the camera is actually pretty good. He's pretty entertaining.
That was 20 years. That was just about 20 years before Barack Obama was elected. I thought that was supposed to have been the medieval times.
Oh yeah, well that's what we're told.
That was supposed to be hell on earth.
It was.
I'm surprised.
Clearly.
I'm surprised that up against the wall, black and brown people weren't being crucified. I thought there'd be several crucifixions going on.
It was dark out. You couldn't see in the
gosh.
parking lot.
Anyway.
Yeah, man, I know. They want to tell you that your past is something other than it was. But I too have a great memory of a lot of the 90s and being a young kid, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm glad we got to do a little reminiscing toward the end here.
Yeah.
And well, listen, I would love to I'll talk to you about next week because I think that you'd be great to be on with this regenerative farmer guest that I have coming on. So I'd love to see you on Thursday if you want to come in. And then there's other stuff that I'd like to do with this fourth state of matter with you.
Yeah.
So maybe in the next couple of Thursdays. I don't know. We'll talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
You let me know and I'll be there, Frank.
You got it. All right. Well, Jay, go ahead and plug whatever you'd like. I have your Perpetual Health CO Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
That is mentioned in the the description of the episode, but let everybody know what else they need to know.
Honestly, and from there you can get to the Rumble page, and of course Substack is perpetualhealth.substack.com, which you guys always hear me saying on the Health Minutes, and on Twitter, because Frank has finally made me get at Jay Gulinello on Twitter, so it's a lot easier to find me there.
That's good. That's good. Now all you have to do is, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that was the most important thing, I know.
Yeah. You can also just get jgulinello.com.
Actually, I do have that, but that's my... I probably shouldn't say that.
Oh, shit.
Too late.
They're already there.
I know. That's my acting and music and musician page. So when I was doing a lot of acting when I first moved here, I have jgulinello.com. So if you're looking to see all that other stuff, well, that's there too. And I have not maintained that site in a very long time, so whatever's there is there. Oh, don't bring it up, Frank.
No, hold on.
Well, everybody, good night. It was nice hanging out with you.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Wait a second. You want to see me with hair?
Sure.
Hold
We're
on
doing a little overtime.
No, because I found Universal Studios, what is this? June 23rd to 29th, 2001.
Ooh. Oh, so wow, this is before 9/11.
This is right before. In fact, I'll tell you what this was.
That's a different life.
We had just a couple of days before this, I went to see Pantera. Where the hell was that? Was that in Long Island or Hammerstein Ballroom? I don't know. But we saw Pantera. It was like one of their last shows. I think it was their last show they ever did in the United States before they broke up. And then there was 9/11. Hold on. There is, see here if I can get this.
My band played CBGB right after 9/11.
Here's just a little bit. I don't know. That's me. I don't know what I'm carrying. Look at that head.
Hey.
Look at that head of hair.
I mean, that looks like a full head of hair to me. I think you're lying to all of us.
Hell, dude, I mean, I miss it. I do miss it.
Yeah.
I do miss it.
Yeah.
I missed it when it was, that's like the Dep 7 gel in my hair right there.
Oh yeah, you can tell.
If I didn't have anything in there, it would be
Wild,
Brillo.
Right? Yeah.
Brillo. And I hated that, especially on humid days.
Oh yeah.
That's why I was already shaving my head.
Yeah.
I was already shaving my head for so long.
You weren't introduced to the hairdryer yet.
Hair dryer.
Get it, yeah.
No. My mom used to dry my hair with a hair dryer when I was really young.
Straighten it out.
I never used a hair dryer myself though. Unless I needed to. No, because the Dep was quick dry.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Dry.
Dep. I remember that stuff.
Dep.
God.
What else? Wait, hold on.
That stuff got crusty on your hands too if you left it too long.
Yeah.
I think I used that in junior high, probably.
Oh, there's so much.
Oh, Dep gel. Yeah.
Dep gel. There's so much there. But listen, Jay, you've been great company once again.
Yeah.
And I hope that you're all feeling well out there, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great weekend, and I will see you very soon. All right. That's it. Nighty night. No.
Oh, that's nice.
I'll say that. I'll save that for Monday. We didn't talk about opening day. Why would I do that now?
That's true.
Hold on a second. Wait. My bad. I had some things planned, but like you said, best laid plans.
Exactly.
Right?
Not when I'm here.
No, that's it. All right. We'll see you guys later.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and now our super chatters, starting with Car Guys New England. I didn't see this. Happy early birthday, Frank. Always enjoy seeing Mr. Gulinello on the show. Have a great weekend. Car Guys and Jay Brits, both from New England, so that's kind of fitting. Thank you to our wonderful Rumble ranters. You're all very fantastic to me. And email the show at quitefranklypodcast@gmail.com. You can also just, or you know what, Frank at quitefrankly.tv. You know, it's not a podcast. I hate saying that. It's going to be Frank at quitefrankly.tv. Other than that, become a sponsor, my friends. I hope to welcome you all over the weekend. Get some Keto Brains. Use promo code Frankly if you're a first-time user. If you are a monthly sponsor, you get a recurring 20% off that I'll give you when you sign up. Good night. Be well.
Chinaman goes to see the eye doctor. After the exam, the doctor says, "I know why you're having trouble." The Chinaman says, "Why?" Doctor says, "You have a cataract." The Chinaman says, No, I have a Lincoln Continental. You don't get it?
I get it. He drives a Lincoln. What?